Welcome to this week's episode of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters, the podcast where we chart the cinematic legacy of the classic monsters. I'm John Campbell. With me, as always, Brendan Jones.
John, I have a question for you.
What is that?
Are you ready to get sexy?
Well, whether I'm ready or not, this movie is gonna get sexy.
Well, it's going to try, and this is what makes me really pissed about this movie. Tony Scott, R.I.P.
Oh, love Tony Scott.
I am so amazed that someone could take a movie in which Catherine Deneuve and Susan Sarandon, two talented, beautiful actresses, can have a sassy lesbian love scene, and it be one of the most boring things you've ever seen in a terribly boring movie.
I am not joking when I'm telling you at a certain point, I fast forward a little bit through that sex scene. Because I'm going like, okay, I see what he's doing. Let's move on.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help that everything leading up to it is abrupt, is weirdly lethargic and abrupt. It's a combo of lethargic and abrupt.
This movie, we are talking about 1983. Am I right on that? 1983's The Hunger? Yes, I am.
Have we jumped over 82 altogether?
We have jumped over 82. I found nothing in 82 with any of the classic kinds of monsters.
Well, you got to warn a guy, because that kind of a time jump, I need to prepare myself.
Yeah, there were a bunch of movies in 81, and then now we've jumped to 83 with The Hunger, the feature directorial debut of Tony Scott.
Yes,
and it's oh my god. And I read a bunch of reviews from the time because I was curious about what reactions, including one of the reviews from the time. One of our favorites, Kim Newman, back when he was writing movie reviews before he was a novelist. I read his review of this movie. He did not care for this movie at all. Roger Ebert gave it 1.5 stars.
Yeah, I remember that Ebert didn't like it.
I will say it was met with tepid to negative reviews was what I saw from the time.
Yeah, I think that's all very correct.
Yeah.
The attention this movie got at the time and still to this day has to do with a lot of the aesthetics.
Yep.
Has a lot to do with the cast, and how incredibly entrenched it is in the style of an era. But it's not about the movie itself.
Oh, I will say one of my first notes just says, "We are firmly in the 80s now."
Oh my God!
It is. I mean, like we've been watching movies in the 80s, but I have not felt the impact of the 80s until this movie.
This movie opens with Bauhaus doing Bela Lugosi's "Dead."
Yep.
And it's not like you're hearing it on the soundtrack. It is them performing in a club doing it. And I'm like going, clever choice for your vampire movie, but it is the most 80s thing. I mean, Bauhaus, it's just the most 80s thing you can have there. And then you've got all the new wave people with their new wave glasses and their big hair. And it took me back, my friend. It took me back.
Oh, it definitely goes back. I do want to read, I pulled this up. I do want to read just the opening of Ebert's review, because he disagrees with you about the sex scene, but he does not like this movie.
Oh, no. Yeah, I remember he loved the sex scene.
He says, "The Hunger," and I agree with this first sentence, "is an agonizingly bad vampire movie." Agree, Roger. Circling around an exquisitely effective sex scene. Disagree, Roger. But I do like when he goes, "Sorry, but that's the way it is, and your reporter has to be honest."
Well, he did the same thing with...
He describes the sex scene as, quote, "dreamily erotic."
Almost any film, and this just comes from me having watched so much Siskel and Ebert over the years. Any film that had a lesbian sex scene in it...
Yeah.
He if the movie was good, he would give the movie credit, but he would also talk about how good the sex scene was.
Yes.
If the movie wasn't good, he would still single out the lesbian sex scene and say it was beautifully done. There was this French movie from the 2000s. God, what was it called? I can't remember. But it was
There's a few that could be, Brendan. I'll just say a French movie that has an effective, extensive lesbian scene could be any number of them.
It was one of those artsy French films, and it had a fairly graphic lesbian sex scene in it. And Siskel was like, "God, this thing is pretentious and badly done, and it's so goofy." And Roger's like, "Oh, absolutely." Of course, that one scene, and
Yeah.
you're like, "Oh God, Roger! All right, okay, we get
I
it.
will
We get it."
say, going back, and I spend, because I'm a nerd with no life, I spend a lot of my time watching old Siskel and Ebert episodes online.
This is
There,
great.
shout out to SiskelEbert.org, by the way, where you can just watch full episodes.
Oh,
And
really?
Brendan, you will get lost down this rabbit hole because
That's a service
you
to
can watch.
mankind.
He's slowly archiving as he can find them, and he's asking people, the guy who runs it, to send in episodes they've taped or whatever. So it's ever updating.
So
And he's got it
all the way
broken-
back to sneak previews.
He's got every era of it, and he's got it broken down by era and year.
Oh,
So you can just go through the
dude.
archive and pick your year, and hopefully they have, he doesn't quite have everything, but it's pretty extensive.
All right, that's that. There's the rabbit hole.
SiskelEbert.org is the shout out. And it's a nonprofit thing. He's just cataloging this as an archive of the show. So I don't mind shouting it out for free because I do go there a lot. But anyway, one of the things that you bring that up, and it's true, I forgot. Siskel can do it a little bit, but Ebert in particular is such a fucking horn dog on that show.
Yeah.
Siskel has his moments where you're just
He does.
Where,
He's
you're
not-
just
he's not
going
innocent.
like, dude, you would not say that on a movie review show today.
No, but yes, he even, and him being the classier one, but still, he would just be like going, a strikingly beautiful actress.
Yeah.
And you're like going, well, agreed, but is that necessary to talk about the merits of this film?
Or Siskel, I don't remember what the movie was, but there's some way I just remember his review. He goes, "Well, I didn't find the movie very enjoyable, but I did find the scenes with so and so extremely erotic." And I'm like, Gene, I don't need to know that you got a boner in a movie theater. All right, I don't need to know it.
You and your wife are going to have a very awkward conversation when you get home.
Because the way it's almost with an eyebrow waggle too, like extremely erotic.
It is, and certainly on this podcast, we're not pretending we're journalists with any kind of integrity.
Lord, no.
But I will certainly you go, oh my God, lifelong crush.
That's a little bit different
and
than
I will
saying you
still
found it
marry Jane
extremely
Seymour.
erotic. Hey, we've talked about this. We did the research. Currently single, Jane Seymour.
I know. If she wants to look me up, I am here.
Hey,
but
Jane Seymour, if you're listening, email into the show.
Big fan of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters.
Yeah.
But the thing is that it's sad that became and at the time it was acceptable that you could talk about that as being relevant to whether you enjoyed something like a film or not.
Well, it's something I've
like-
talked about in general in movies. If you look now, I would say that overall there's less nudity and sexual. I mean, there's still sexuality in movies.
Sure.
In general, because I don't think it's the appeal it wants. It certainly isn't the appeal. It's not going to get butts and seats in the theater now.
No, there's. I mean, everything is cyclical. Everything the superhero phase will go away at some point, and at some point, who knows? Erotic film may rise again, but
Maybe, but let's see. I mean, well, or at least erotic film is one thing, but like, let's say the horny teen movies of Porky's and stuff like that don't seem to, even when they kind of
might, because there was a good long while, especially where that thing, which was very prevalent in the 70s and 80s, went away, and then you had American Pie come in.
That's
so
true.
I mean, like I said, everything's cyclical. At some point, who knows? People will go.
Well, I feel like
it's not going to be like it was, but we're getting naked again. For a while, it was cable TV. The whole thing with like Game of Thrones and every show had all the naked stuff.
You know what's interesting now is they still do. Only now it's like horrifying. Like that show Euphoria is like, oh, they'll be naked, but you're not going to be turned on. You're going to be horrified by what these teens are up to.
I have not watched that.
I haven't either because that's not my thing.
Though it's Zendaya, right? She's in that.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, and I hear it's very good, but it is just like you won't believe how dangerous the things kids are doing today. It's drugs
I did read that article
and promiscuous
about
sex, and
the actress from White Lotus who's in it also. I read that article where she said, "Hey, can I not take my top off in every episode this season?"
I'm willing to do it sometimes, but every episode seems
a bit much.
This is a scene where I'm just having a conversation with my parents, and for some reason I'm topless in it. I don't. You said you'd be topless. I don't know.
Mom, did you pack a lunch for me today? Put your clothes on, young
Oh
lady.
dear, I seem to have forgotten my top again. No, I do, and actually, one of the big things they stress is that there are far more penises in the show than there are boobs. That's sort of
But I think, I mean, that's why I think
yeah,
the type of what we're talking about will
yeah.
change over time, and equal representation.
Well,
hey, that's fine.
Because I will say, I did read some reviews from the time from female critics who were talking about what a fucking misogynistic male gaze bullshit movie this is. Like, it's all about like, look at their boobs.
Well, and to be honest, though,
But with the
I can see
pretension
that,
of it
but
being
it's really
art.
not.
No, here's my problem. Aside from we focus
There's
on
two nude scenes in this, as far as I remember. There's the
the
opening one with Ann Magnuson.
There's also one where they're just randomly in the shower too. Bowie and Catherine Deneuve, and they're just sort of like
that's
soaping
true.
each other up. They're not even really having sex. They're just kind of like caressing each other. It's weird. Like the whole movie.
No, there's nothing weird about that. Jim.
The whole movie's weird, to be fair. But I was
the
whole
whole movie's just
the sex
weird.
scenes. The thing is, like, because it was the talk at the time where these sex.
That's
scenes,
right.
But
when we're
what I was going
right
to say
here
is,
at the beginning, with us getting into all this, is our way of saying to the audience, in a weird way, we're talking about the things that this movie is remembered for.
Yes. Which is interesting,
which sadly takes away from the things that I actually like about it, which there are a couple of things, and why I said this could be remade.
There's not much for me to like in this movie, I'll say that. But I will say my issues with the sex scenes are similar to my issues with the whole movie, which is it's so needlessly stylized. It is so style over substance. It is almost incomprehensible in places because
it
of the
is
style.
Comedically art directed.
Oh my god.
Comedically
edited. The amount of cross-cutting in this movie made my head hurt. Like, it made it hard to follow the film because we're always cross-cutting through something. Everything is shot
we have
through.
Dived in so deep and haven't talked about the poster yet.
Which also further I mean, I'll say this, the whole thing it's of a whole, man, because the poster is pretty indicative of how weird this movie's gonna be.
Yeah, though I do like it. I mean, it's another stylized thing.
Yeah.
But it's at least it's interesting.
It is interesting, and it is striking, unlike some other posters we've seen.
You've got very 80s, almost Patrick Nagel, but not quite, art of a woman, arms outstretched, and it is Catherine Deneuve.
Yeah.
And her head back, and she's wearing this sort of silken red gown, which the reason it's shaped like this, it goes down into a V shape, is it's also the way the light hits it. It looks like a puddle of blood from behind. Yeah. That's important. Her hair is all stylized and white and stretched out.
It's headed into like Bride of Frankenstein territory. With
actually. Yeah, very much kinked out.
Yeah.
And she is embracing, on one side, sexy androgynous David Bowie, and then on the other side, sexy androgynous Susan Sarandon.
I will say,
just popping
there
up.
are times in this movie, and I think it's purposeful, where they look identical in some shots.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're like, whoa, that's Susan Sarandon, but I thought for a second it was David Bowie.
I know, because Susan Sarandon has very 80s kind of artsy chopped hair, short hair, and
I mean,
Bowie, of course, has the.
I'll say this as a positive, though I don't enjoy the art direction. I will say there is a lot of thought. It does not feel incidental. Right. It does seem like a very calculated movie. I'm just not enjoying what's being done here.
I mean, if one thing, what Tony Scott hasn't learned yet at this stage is.
By the way, and I say this as somebody who likes the majority of Tony Scott. I love Tony Scott, and I love how stylized his movies are, actually.
Right. It's just that at this point, he hasn't learned how to balance all that with story. And an artistic eye, a stylized artistic eye, is fine as long as it doesn't just call out lapses in logic, where you sit there going, something as simple as, you have this gorgeously, they're all paintings. Every single shot is kind of an illustration or painting, but you're like going, these are scientists in a lab. Does no one pay the light bill there? Because the only light's coming in through slats, and it's very cool looking. very music video looking.
Mm-hmm.
But you see people squinting at their typewriters, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe turn the lights
That's
on.
the thing
Jesus.
across pretty much every review I read for the movie at the time that I completely agree with is Tony Scott is coming from commercials and music videos.
Yes.
And it fucking shows. And they talk about like, oh, and a lot of people are writing Tony Scott off because they're like, oh God, it looks like one of his fucking perfume commercials the whole movie.
Well, this is the beginning of that type of, and let's not forget we've got great directors that came out of music videos and commercials.
Tony and Ridley come from that, and Ridley just put out Blade Runner the year before this, which is similarly stylized but much better, of course.
Where all of that still serves story. This does not serve story. This serves prettiness.
In fact,
aesthetics.
According to the trivia here, Ridley was offered this movie first. Yeah. He was the first choice.
He made the right choice,
and he said no. But it was not. It's what's interesting is it was not him that recommended Tony. It was who was it here? Then because they went to another director that I have to find here. I think it's Alan Parker. In fact, I'm certain it is. Who said, "I don't want to do it, but you should talk to this guy Tony Scott. He'd be good for it."
And thus, it happened.
Yeah.
We also get on the poster, we get overlaid, we get across it the pendant, the Ankh pendant that has a little dagger attached. That's an important plot point.
Yeah, it's an
and
interesting
then the
aspect
catchphrase.
Oh, the tagline for this thing?
Yeah.
Nothing human loves forever.
Yeah.
And that is the only tagline on every poster that they put out. They stuck with that. I don't have alternate taglines for this movie.
Oh, interesting. But yeah, I mean, it works, I guess.
It fit. I mean, I'll say it doesn't hide. That is what the movie is. That confusing tagline, this imagery, all fits what movie I watched.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So that launches us into it, and it is a different vampire movie.
A very different vampire movie. You talk about that dagger being important on the poster. That's an immediate thing right here. We take away the fangs in this movie.
No fangs, no weaknesses to sunlight. This is a very different take.
No stakes through the heart. No. None of the classic stuff. I almost thought halfway through, I'm going like, God, should we not do this? Does this not count? But it is a vampire movie. I mean, there's still.
I think blood drinking and immortality pretty much makes it a vampire movie.
And aesthetically, the way the vampires are presented is very 80s new wave vampires, but still has that like. I mean, we talked about this I think last week when we said we were doing this movie. David Bowie as a vampire is one of the best casting decisions. I just wish we got a David Bowie vampire movie. That's kind of. I feel cheated by this movie a little bit in that sense. Because you want Bowie as Dracula, basically, right? Like, or esque, Dracula-esque at least.
And to last longer than 25 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, I think it's 40, but still. Because I clocked it. It's about halfway through the movie he dies, and you're like,
he's good.
Oh, he's very good. I always liked Bowie as an actor, actually.
Everybody in this is okay.
I like all these actors. I mean, I like all these and have liked them in other movies.
Deneuve is icy till she has to have her moments of sorrow, and then she delivers.
I think Sarandon.
The main problem is the language barrier with her.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, she speaks English okay, but the way this is recorded, there were scenes where I was like going, I do not know what she just said.
Oh, I gave up because
it's low in the mix, and it's just like
I gave up at a certain point because I also realized it doesn't matter what anyone says. This movie has the dialogue in this movie doesn't fucking matter. It's all about.
Well, here's what I will guarantee you, my friend.
Yeah.
And I don't come from any knowledge on it, but I guarantee you that Tony Scott ripped pages out of the screenplay. Yeah. This screenplay, as it was filmed, has to have been 15 pages because there is very little dialogue. There's very little. He's just like, it's not necessary. It's all going to be about glances and long takes and sweeping camera movements. And you'll get the point because I know that there's no way those screenwriters tried to get their ideas across in like maybe 2 chunks of dialogue for an entire feature film. So I think just yanked pages and said, we don't need it.
Yeah.
Because this is not a talking movie.
No.
It's just
That's the thing. When I couldn't hear it, I just went, it doesn't matter. I don't
yeah,
even need to hear what they're
right.
saying. It's all about the visuals. And I think a lot of that is, when you talk about Tony Scott, I think a lot of it too is him getting more tradition. When you see his style put on more traditional film narratives, something like a Top Gun, I think
Or where he just learned his lesson and
Yeah.
said, you know what, I need to work hand in hand with
yeah.
this story
Yeah.
and not overtake it with just pictures.
Right. And because let me see here. I got to see, what is the movie he makes after this. Like, because I think it's interesting that he continued to get big Hollywood movies after this, because this seems unapproachable. Let's see. He does The Hunger. His next movie is Top Gun. Okay, so he immediately goes completely the opposite way of making the most commercial, big budget blockbuster movie star movie. That's interesting. That is still such a Tony Scott movie, obviously. Everything the way that's shot, and I know because I am a big Top Gun fan, from watching the behind the scenes stuff, there was a lot of like them getting dailies back in the studio going, what is this? I don't like how this looks. This is weird. And then of course it ended up. It's so interesting because you see with that movie how many people then start aping Tony Scott.
Oh sure.
Like,
I mean, this is the beginning of a particular. Not this movie, but he is of that generation where, they're very influenced by coming out of the advertising world and also art photography, fashion photography, and then music video. This aesthetic is just coming into play here in '83, and much more than just The Hunger. There were so many movies of that period where you'd go, I thought this was just a detective movie, and why is now everything shot through blue filters with neon behind them?
I mean, the three I think of are him, his brother Ridley, because when you talk about, just as you're saying, the detective movie, I'm thinking of Black Rain, which I love.
Oh, yeah.
But is a pretty standard police movie that is so stylized by Ridley Scott. And then Michael Mann, of course, is the other one that I think of as having that, like, I mean, you look at something like early stuff like Thief or Manhunter, and you're taking very traditional genre movies on paper, and turning them into these which look, these are like three of my favorite directors. So I mean, I grew up on Tony and Ridley's movies in particular. Watching, I mean, there's
it's great stuff, and it's totally valid. It's just here you are seeing this guy early days just go, here's my vision, and everyone going, yeah, but I kind of wanted to see a movie.
What's interesting, because I'm looking at the rest of his career, and they're all, despite the fact his stylization, they're all pretty, because he does Top Gun, then he does Beverly Hills Cop 2, Days of Thunder, The Last Boy Scout, like Crimson Tide.
Oh, he pulled back way hard.
No, because it all starts to be much more conventional blockbuster movies that all hit big and make him a big director. But it's so interesting that he keeps the style, but he goes like, ooh, I need stories and narratives like people can get into.
Well, yeah. Plus, he learned pacing, because this thing,
this thing is, because I think
it's 90 minutes and it does feel so much longer.
And that's because I think of Tony Scott movies as being lightning paced. Like most of his movies just whip by. Like Crimson Tide, I love that movie because it is just so absolutely intense, and you're just gripped for the 2 hours.
And one of the best interpretations of a Russian submarine captain you're ever going to see.
Oh, that's Hunt for Red October.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Crimson Tide is Denzel and Gene Hackman.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Denzel.
Basically
mutinying.
Yeah, because they're arguing about whether or not to launch nukes. And it's just this intense movie of watching two great actors go toe to toe in Hackman and Washington. And then Tony Scott, but it's just, like I said, that movie is just a white knuckle ride. I bet there were times
on set that Tony Scott was sitting there going, could I get a little neon in the background of this?
Well, I will say,
on the submarine there might be a little neon.
He does do a lot of stuff, like the weapons room being entirely red because they're on red alert. He still does get that stuff in there. There's a lot of steam and intense lighting through grates and stuff.
But not nearly enough wind-blown fabric.
This movie is like 80% curtains wafting.
It is. I was sitting there going, this is a bold new take on vampirism. Apparently, it's not just about being able to control animals or the storm. Apparently, also vampires have the ability to constantly
Oh,
make fabric waft.
oh my God, the
Jesus,
fabric, the
God,
fabric.
it's all
It
over.
it never ends, man. It
And
really
I
is.
do
There's like,
love towards the end
let's go to some more.
where all the doves and pigeons are in the house, and that there's scenes literally of Catherine Deneuve trying to act and getting smacked in the face by like a dove.
I
Like,
mean,
oh
the
God.
movie is, it's so aggressively arty that it does seem like a parody. Like you couldn't make a better parody of a pretentious art film.
Yes. Yeah.
It really is. And right from the start, I mean, when you talk about the opening of this movie, I just wrote down it's a music video right from the start. This guy is singing directly to camera through this grating. And
Yeah, we're in like an underground New York new wave club.
yeah.
And Bauhaus is playing their song. It's their one big hit. Bela Lugosi's
Also,
dead,
I
but
mean,
it's
very on the
appropriate.
nose too, right? Bela
Very
Lugosi
on
is
the nose.
dead.
And what we see is stylish, because new wave, different from punk. These
Yeah.
are all very stylish people.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Of the period, and we see Catherine Deneuve dressed to the nines,
Mhm.
in her sunglasses,
Yeah.
and Bowie looking. I'm sorry, Bowie's a god.
No,
and
because you watch it, you go like Catherine Deneuve, very beautiful, and then you're like, oh, but who cares? I'm looking at Bowie now.
I know, and they're both kind of stalking, but he's more actively like moving through the crowd, and she's the one like standing back and going, mm-hmm.
That's the
And
thing
they
that
focus on a pair of people, a
That's the
guy
thing.
and a gal.
That's the thing that sucks about we lose Bowie so early in the movie because I'm way more drawn to what he's doing than no offense.
Well,
to
he
Catherine
also has an
Deneuve.
emotional arc. I will say
Yeah.
this: her character is immortal. So her character, while she's sad to be
Yeah.
losing another lover, she's been through this many times. His journey is more interesting
is.
because he basically is like, "Oh shit, my time's up, and it's running out, and I'm desperate, and I'm angry, and I'm afraid."
No, I
It's all-
actually the first half of this movie I like much more than the second half. Not that I really enjoy the first half because it's still too stylized and too obscure and just sort of distanced from anything. But Bowie rapidly aging is interesting and
Yeah, it is.
haunting in places. Like that's the most horror I feel in this movie is that stuff.
Yeah.
And once again, I actually, if you just turn down how stylized and how the way this is edited, I could get into this plot of these vampires stalking.
See, here's the thing: when I say like the things I like about this movie, the things that this movie is remembered for, and the things that the way it made its mark are exactly the things I would cut away.
Yeah,
that stuff is what keeps this from being good. Tony Scott's style that he chose for this is wrong. His editing, wrong. His the take on all this is wrong. At the core of it, this is where I go to, I wonder what the original script was like, because this idea of vampires, this idea of how they're operating in the modern world, this idea of their own ticking time clock or whatever, how they hunt, and also the blood specialist lady, and then what we discover about what the blood's doing and the bodies. This is all interesting.
Well, and
could do a really good movie with this.
I'm looking at this and I'm going, I kind of want to read the novel, because I'm looking at this going, it seems like, well,
was it based on a novel, or is this just a novelization of
no,
the film?
it's based on a novel. It's based on a 1981 novel by Whitley Strieber, who also wrote Wolfen, which became a movie as well. Or his book was called The Wolfen, and then they made
Whitley Strieber, who also wrote Communion.
Yes.
Based on his real life alien abduction experience.
Yes, I did.
Just
see
like
that.
Wolfen was based on his real life dealings with Native American spirits in the form of wolves, and The Hunger based on his real life experience with vampires in New York.
Mm-hmm. He actually also wrote 2 sequels to the Hunger novels.
Actually, I wouldn't mind checking that out, because I don't think this isn't my preferred take on vampirism, but it's an interesting one.
It seems like the book, though, leads into more of the stuff that you and I are interested in, which is it deals more with the difficulty in obtaining victims and concealing murders, and
Yeah, because these are stalker vampires that are not turning other people into vampires. They're like serial killers.
Yeah.
So in this movie, we see them disposing of corpses. It's like, yeah, and we have cops coming by we have Dan Hedaya. Basically, this movie,
Oh, I
for
love
me,
seeing Dan Hedaya in this movie.
yeah, he makes everything better.
He does. Another guy I wish was in the movie more. But apparently also the book does way more with like her life in ancient Egypt and where she's the progeny of another vampire and that's part of Greek mythology and stuff like that. I mean, all that's, I mean, it sounds almost like somebody should, if you talk about remaking it, I'd almost want to do it as go to the book and do it as a series where you can make it a little bit more expansive and mess around in time and stuff like that. Because here, cut all the random cut back to her in ancient Egyptian garb because they're not really selling it.
Well, I will say
it comes out of nowhere.
Have too much time to linger on it and say that was bad because they really don't spend. These are
that's
quick music video cuts that
you're almost going like, yeah, it's more confusing than anything. So I say just get it out of there.
Get it out of there.
Oh, I say
I don't want it.
This thing could be cut down to 45 minutes. This movie, really, if you lose all the just extraneous shit that's in this thing, there's about 45 minutes of plot here.
You could lose some dying monkeys.
Oh my God. Okay. Anyway, because we'll talk. I mean, that's the thing. We're cutting back between them killing these people at their house and the. My notes say they take couple to their home, seduce them, and then my next note just says monkeys ?
Yeah. The thing is they at least at the beginning of the movie they look like they are stylish upper class swingers.
Yeah,
and they've found a hot young new wave couple.
I think that's a great take on a vampire couple up front. Like the first few minutes of the movie, I'm going, okay, I'm intrigued.
They bring them to her swanky. Apparently, she owns an entire building, and that makes sense. She's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
She got the money.
Yeah. She got that money.
And so basically, they break off into gender-specific pairs, which I think, the whole lesbian angle is such a big deal for so many people. And I'm like, it kind of makes sense that this immortal vampire woman would just be pansexual. But for this,
I will say that for 83, though, a pansexual character is pretty progressive. Movie,
and of course that stood out.
But the movie doesn't really have anything
you
to
actually
say
it would have been. For this, again, using David Bowie and his reputation, they could have easily had this couple be broken up with girl, guy.
Yeah, I don't think they were ready for that. People thought that the woman on woman was hot, but people would have been real turned off if Bowie was making out with a dude. Now,
so basically,
I think
they separate and into these groups, and they both make out with these people. Then, they don't bite them in the neck.
No.
Both David Bowie and Catherine Deneuve, and I can't remember their last name was Blaylock, I think, but I can't remember what their characters are.
It is Miriam, and John and Miriam Blaylock.
So they both have these, just like you see on the poster, these amulets, necklaces that are ankhs, and when you pull the bottom of the ankh off, there is a blade concealed within the ankh.
It's a pretty cool weapon. I like the blade.
It's nice.
Yeah.
And then they slice their necks open and drink that blood.
Oh, we don't ever really see much drinking of blood in the movie. It's mostly implied.
Their mouths go in, but you don't spend a lot of time with them going.
Only Susan Sarandon do we see later with like blood all around her mouth and stuff, which is cool.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that David Bowie was saying, like, I read some quotes from when he goes, I think people like it, man, but there's a lot of perverse blood in this movie, so that may turn some people off, yeah, and then I'm going, could have used more blood. There's not enough.
There are a couple of scenes where it's just because of some very good makeup where you're like going, ooh, that's a good throat slit. Or,
you see a lot. You see a lot of the slicing into flesh. What you don't see is a lot of consuming of blood. That's the thing that kind of got me for a vampire movie, which I would respect the reverse of that.
Yeah, at the end when Susan Sarandon is, when she basically opens her own veins and is bleeding out on the floor, I'm like,
I like that.
Yeah, it's gruesome.
Once again, because Tony Scott is a good filmmaker, there's imagery when they're like making out and there's just blood pouring from her on her mouth, and like that's cool, creepy horror movie imagery, and it looks good.
Okay, Roger. All right.
No, that's the kind of fucked up guy. I'm going like, I found the lesbian scene boring, but when there's blood pouring out of them and they're kissing, then I'm going, this looks great.
Two thumbs up.
Yeah, oh, yeah, for this one scene. No, I thought that, but I did think that actually was artistic in a way. I thought the lesbian scene was like bullshit fake art movie, European.
Well, I mean, it is all
trash.
posing, and the bed itself, literally in that scene, becomes a light box.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God, stop
I've
it.
always-
okay? All of a
I've
sudden the
always
mattress
hated-
is illuminated. I'm like, fuck that.
I've always hated overly stylized sex scenes, and Tony Scott is maybe more guilty of them than it. Like the sex scene of Top Gun is it's all silhouettes and take my breath
but
away.
it took my breath away.
Yeah, I mean, I love the song. Berlin's great, and that soundtrack is awesome in general. But
Yes.
I mean, I like the shots of like him riding up on the motorcycle and stuff. But then then he does the sex scene in True Romance. You could almost just slot in the sex scene from Top Gun. It looks exactly the same.
Yeah, it is. It's exactly the
It's
same.
the exact same. I swear the shots are the same. The lighting's the same.
Tony's just like, I figured out how to do sex scenes.
It's all like light coming in through closed blinds and
Yes.
blue filters and
Yep.
yeah, lots of dissolves.
That's how you do it.
Yeah, and you're just like, all right, whatever. Then he got big into late Tony Scott when he got big into the hand cranked cameras, which is where he would do that stuttering speed ramping in some of his later movies because he would literally shoot film through a camera he was cranking by hand to give it that weird like, you watch like Man on Fire or Domino. That kind of stuff is in those a lot.
I liked Man on Fire. I never saw Domino.
Domino I thought was just okay, but I really like Man on Fire.
Well, it's Denzel.
It's Denzel, and he is kicking ass in that movie.
It is true.
Like
that
nobody's business.
that is closer to what I would want from an Equalizer than what we got with the Equalizer.
Oh, I actually really like both the Equalizer movies.
Oh, okay.
Come on, man. When he just uses that Home Depot as his armory at the end of the movie, that rules. He's killing people with yard supplies.
All right.
I love it. So let's see here. Geez, we're still at the beginning of the movie. So we have that whole thing where it's intercutting this monkey killing another monkey and them killing these people, and I don't know what the hell's going on, but it kind of makes some sense when they call in Susan Sarandon and go, oh shit, look at all this monkey carnage, which is what my notes say here. Called in to examine monkey carnage.
Yeah, the monkeys are killing each other in a cage, and then we realize, without the movie really going to great lengths to help us realize, but it's a research lab, and Susan Sarandon is a doctor of some sort, scientist of some sort. We're not quite sure what, and she's like going,
I like all this doctor of some sort, scientist of some sort. I don't know.
And she just goes, oh, the aggression. They were together for 20 years. I don't know why this happened. And let's examine the blood. And, apparently she's engaged to or married to or dating another fellow doctor.
Clifty Young, man.
Clifty Young.
Always a solid character actor.
Yeah, a solid character actor. But come on. He would not. I'm sorry. Susan Sarandon. No way.
I just kept going, poor Clifty Young throughout this whole movie. All he is concerned about Susan Sarandon, and he'll end up dead for
Well,
him.
he is also jealous boyfriend guy, but that scene is when he's finally going, you know what I think you guys are up to for 3 hours?
Yeah. I'll tell you, my mind went to some places,
he did
lady.
cheat on him.
Yeah.
It's like, do you think I didn't see that lady? I mean, she was hot. I think anybody would have slept with that lady. Come on.
Did you see that was there's a great story from Susan Sarandon where they talk about in the script her character was supposed to be drunk when she was seduced by Catherine Deneuve, and she said,
and she's like, yeah, no one would need to be drunk to be seduced.
That's what she said. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I will say this: that's one of my problems with it. It's not that they develop a relationship; or romance. It's that it happens like.
Yeah.
Bang!
Well,
because I'm 15 minutes.
Because I'm also
going. I dropped some water on me.
But this is because I am thinking in vampire terms. I'm going. Is there some sort of hypnosis going on here?
Right.
Because there's the scene where she goes to the book signing and she kind of looks up at her and she's like, "Oh, you I don't.
I think there is some sort of
There's supposed to be some sort of supernatural connection between them,
yeah,
at least,
not
right?
kind of mind control, but sort of a sympathy thing where it's like, notice me.
Yeah. See me.
Yeah, see
See
me.
me.
Thanks, Mr. Oldman.
Yeah.
We're not there yet. But anyway, so uh anyway, at this point, so Susan Sarandon totally disconnected storyline with monkeys.
Yeah. I do really
Um
like something we don't often see, which is the vampires getting rid of the bodies of their
yeah,
victims.
I
I
did kind
thought
of like
that was
that.
good, where they go down and they burn them. They've got a
And since
furnace in
she
the
owns
basement.
that building, I
Yeah.
mean, it's not even like they have to worry about
No, it's all just
necessarily what
like
neighbors will think.
done and
They go
done.
down to the basement, there's the
Yeah.
furnace, they put the bodies in.
Yeah. Then they shower off and they go to bed in full daylight, of course.
Yes.
Classic
But
vampire.
we of course we see them walking about in daylight.
Well,
But
because
yeah,
this was.
their hours are pretty much nocturnal.
I'm
anyway.
reading about the book here, and this was sort of Stryber's whole thing was to take a much more grounded approach to vampirism, where it's like he saw it more as a science fiction novel where the vampires are a species or it's a blood
Yeah.
mutation, and so it's like some of the mythical traits are there, but a lot of them aren't, which I'm okay with. I wish
No,
the
I'm
movie
fine with that.
delved
That's
more
the
into
whole
that,
thing of
actually.
like folklore being built up around something
Right.
that is it could be scientifically explained if anyone really studied it.
'Cause
So yes, that they are like mutants.
I like that
The whole
part of the
thing
movie where
seems
they
like-
talk about her blood sample. It's like there's two blood patterns here that are fighting for supremacy of your body.
That's where I'm sitting there, like watching that, going,
Yeah.
"There's stuff here, but it's buried under all this."
Once again, it makes me go, maybe I need to read the book, because the book sounds like it deals with some interesting science
Yeah.
fiction vampire stuff. I don't, and then there's,
But
I said
it
he wrote
also, of
two
course,
sequels
just like
as well.
every vampire movie, is inventing rules. The whole idea
Yeah.
of at some point, like the big reveal is that even though she has loved all of her past lovers and promised them immortality, she, being a pure-blood vampire, is the only one that will actually be immortal,
Right.
and they have a time limit. It
Yeah.
might be centuries,
Yeah.
but eventually. And it seems almost like whenever she finds someone else, it almost seems like, dude, the second she finds somebody else, that's when the clock starts ticking and you're gonna die.
Well, they say, and it's in the IMDb, and I think they do say it in the movie, she's been with David Bowie for about 300 years.
Yeah, well, we get flashbacks.
Yeah.
We get flashbacks to
Oh
like
yeah, we get once again the flashbacks. There are such afterthoughts in the
1700s
movies.
and-
Yeah, when they're in their like colonial dress and playing their instruments and stuff.
yes.
Uh,
That's apparently also a vampiric trait, is that you get really into fancy music.
yeah.
Because
David
at the
Bowie-
end of the movie, you're like going, I guess that transferred over as well.
They did
Love
say-
of fancy music.
According to the trivia, Bowie really learned how to play the cello for this.
Dude, I could tell.
I
I was watching his hands and going, and I wondered about Beth Ehlers, even though, I mean, because there were scenes of her at least manipulating that violin. It was like, oh, she might have actually been able to play it.
I'll take a look at that. But
But I would not be surprised that Bowie did.
well, I
'cause
mean,
that's a
Bowie.
thing.
Well, Bowie was also already a musician and stuff like that. I have to imagine.
Again,
it's
I
in
need to
his-
state it in case I didn't make it clear earlier. Bowie is a god, and
Oh,
actually, when he
unquestionably.
passed from this earth, he rose on high and is watching over us all now.
He ascended. Yeah, he ascended.
did
for sure.
ascend.
Yeah.
Big Bowie fan, and
same
I
here.
do agree that guy should have acted more because
Oh.
he had
Yeah.
the chops.
Yeah.
Merry
absolutely.
Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. Come on, Merry
Mhm.
Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. Is great.
Very good. I thought he was great in the Prestige as well.
Yes,
yeah.
yeah, playing Tesla is great.
Yeah, he was always good. I was always happy to see him show up in a movie here or there. Oh, here you go. Beth Eller spent 6 weeks learning to play the basic rudiments of the violin.
It was, I mean, obviously she wasn't a pro, but
she
there was at least
did
enough
the
where I
work
was
to
looking at it going,
convince you. Yeah,
yes, it was convincing enough. I was like, good on you.
yeah, because we've seen some bad
Yeah.
music instrument acting and stuff before. Okay, so let's see here.
You're still in the lab with the monkeys.
Well, yeah, well, we see them go to sleep in the daytime, but we also see that
right,
David
right.
Bowie can't fall asleep. Oh no.
Right.
Yeah. So now we're back in the back in
His
the lab.
inability to sleep seems we're getting all these hints that it ties in with her research is about.
Yeah, because
Um,
Deneuve is watching a TV interview with Susan Sarandon where she's talking
right,
about she's been studying the process of aging, basically the like genetic.
right, and she's convinced that science can cure death,
Yeah,
and it has something to do with sleep patterns and
but
something
I, I'm
blood
I'm I'm watching this
related.
and going, oh well, this is going to be the main thrust of the movie. Is they're going to try to use Susan Sarandon to save David Bowie?
Hmm.
No, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me then as a plot.
What do you mean?
Well, because it just seems like then her having the aging thing doesn't actually play into the story that much. It's more
Um,
thematic, right? Which is like a woman who's interested in stopping aging gets the chance to be immortal. Okay.
well, I think at this point, what it's serving is a plot device. It's not just I see someone that I'm attracted to on TV, and she's clearly intelligent and beautiful.
Yeah.
But I do believe they're trying to indicate that Catherine Deneuve is hoping
Yeah.
that there is a cure for her human lovers, because she is tired of them dying after
Yeah.
a few centuries. Also, she is a sympathetic vampire lady, even though she's of course hunting on mortals. Um, but then of course the ending is. We'll talk about the ending. The ending. I can't imagine that's even in the screenplay or the
Uh,
book. That ending is
Brendan, it is not, and we will talk about the ending.
okay. Good.
And how it was a very late addition to this movie.
That's just bullshit. That ending.
Yeah. So knock, knock, knock at the door, though, and it is our friend Beth Ellers who's playing Alice. Is that right?
Yeah, I think her name's Alice.
Yeah, Alice.
She's like a 12-year-old or 13-year-old girl who
Mhm.
I guess I don't. They never explain like how. Like, was there an ad in the paper? I will teach you to play classical music or something. I don't know.
She already
But
has a
apparently,
pre-established relationship with these people, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
she comes over twice a week to play chamber music with
Mm-hmm.
them. She's a violinist,
I
a
love
young, talented violinist.
I love the idea of this 13-year-old girl going to the apartment of these really hip, super sexy European people, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, and she's totally natural with him too. And she even gives Bowie shit when she shows up. She's
Yeah.
like, but that's actually retrospectively clever. Is that she goes, "You look like shit."
Yeah.
I was like, "What's up with you?" She can
Yeah.
already tell that he's starting to age.
And she's got this Polaroid camera that she's taking pictures in, and so Bowie's looking at the picture of himself, haunted.
Yeah, we don't quite know what's up yet, but
No, because
she
Bowie
comes
looks
in.
like Bowie at this point.
Deneuve plays piano,
Yeah.
and Bowie plays cello, and
This is where we
Beth
get-
plays. Alice is playing
We
violin.
get so I'm not even gonna call it out every time because there's so much fucking cross cutting. But we're cross cutting them doing this with them in colonial wear playing the piano and cello, and you're going like, okay, they're
And also
I
with
get
like a talented protege that may at some point have ended up as dinner. Who knows?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but this is a spunky young New York gal, and we like her, and they are fond of her clearly.
Yeah.
And so it's like, bye, Alice.
I like
Bye,
all
plot
this stuff.
point.
I like the day-to-day life of these vampires more than I like
Yeah.
any of the quote-unquote plot in this movie. I just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I like Deneuve and Bowie as a vampire couple. I'm
I
less
have to
interested
say,
in the
though,
Susan Sarandon
I
part of the
don't-
movie.
I don't know what immortality is like, but could you imagine? They've been around. She's been around longer,
Thousands,
but
yeah.
he's been around for like 3 centuries.
Yeah.
Wouldn't your music taste change? Like, they're
That
playing
is
the same
never the
music
case.
for hundreds of years.
That is never the case in any of these vampire movies. They
And
always
the
are just
cellist-
frozen at. Nobody's ever
Wouldn't he
going,
start going-
hey, these Beatles are pretty good, you know?
And wouldn't he now be the world's most amazing cellist? Wouldn't she be the best pianist in the
Yeah,
entire
yeah.
world because they've had centuries to?
Well, I mean, a take on this could have been that he is basically Bowie as a vampire, right? Like,
Here's the
that's
thing.
a better
I mean,
movie. That's a different movie, but I would rather watch that movie.
Yes,
where
that's
he's a rock
essentially the
star
vampire
vampire.
Lestat. And
Oh yeah, 100%, yeah.
and this.
Oh my god! By the way, I kind of want to see. I kind of wish Bowie had played the vampire Lestat.
Yes, of course. The Stryber novel, I can tell, probably was influenced by Interview. Anne Rice really did kind of break new ground, even though her take isn't anything like this that Stryber did, but where it's like, I'm going to explode some of the mythology around vampires. And Vampire Lestat, the sequel, what year did that come out? Do you have it?
I'm looking it up literally
When the
right
novel
now.
came out?
So Interview with the Vampire,
Is 75, 76?
76, yes. The Vampire
Yeah.
Lestat is 85. Oh wow.
Oh, 85. Okay.
I didn't know.
No,
I didn't know
I
there
take
was
it back.
that big a gap between them there.
Yeah, I thought it was actually much sooner. So okay, this wasn't influenced by that,
Yeah,
but still, I
but
guess the
Interview with the
idea.
Vampire probably had
Yeah,
some influence for sure, because I mean that kind of was a game changer in vampire stories in general.
sure.
Obviously.
I mean, the whole idea of a modern day reporter sitting down and having an interview with a centuries old guy, and he's like going, "You've got vampires all wrong. I'm going to set you straight." Um, I'm not a fan of the book. I'm just a fan of what she accomplished. I was never a big Anne Rice fan.
I will say, I have never read the book. I have seen the movie, which I did like for the most
Yeah, I
part.
liked the movie.
I am
We'll
curious
be
to
getting
see.
to that one.
We'll be getting there. And then we get to talk about my love of Tom Cruise. But Hail Xenu, of course. No. Just as an actor, I always have to say I love Tom Cruise as an actor. I think he's a great actor. But
Anyone that can get to that level on the bridge, I just I gotta respect.
you got
He
to.
is so clear. He's
Yeah.
so clear. He's see through.
Yeah, he's translucent. Yeah. But I am curious to see, because AMC is adapting the Lestat, not the Vampire Chronicles or whatever, as a series.
Are they really?
Yeah, they're going to do it as an ongoing series. So I think
That's a good idea.
that I'm very curious to watch that.
But again, cast young actors, because if you're going to be doing,
I believe they have.
it's such a long series that those actors will age.
Because I think they've cast the leads, and I don't know any of them because they're all like young and very good looking.
Oh, I would imagine. And talk about, there'll be plenty of guy kissing in that show. I hope you're ready for that.
I'm preparing myself now.
Okay. But anyway, so yeah. Oh, where do they go after this?
So that was then it's as I have my notes here, it's Bowie moping about and he's studying his face in the mirror, and
Yes.
he notices some wrinkles under his eyes. Is the first time we can really see something.
Yeah. And doesn't he ask her at some point, like, how long does this usually last? And she's like, well,
yeah, how long did your other partners last? And she says some days, some weeks, whatever.
Yeah.
Was kind of
man. At some point, he decides, or at least he says, "Is like, I got 24 hours."
Cool, 24 hours then.
Does she
got it.
go to the book signing before he goes to her lab?
Yes. She
Yes.
meets Sarandon first. So she goes to the book signing. It's just this quick scene where it's like, "Can I speak with you?" And Sarandon's like, "I would like that."
Yeah, I think that would be just fine.
Because then she comes back, and I like Bowie is reading Sarandon's book, and he goes, "Why are these things always so poorly written?" That I want
These things,
more.
you mean scientific books?
Yeah, I want more of that. Give me more Vampire Bowie who's like, ugh, humanity.
Again, we all just needed more Bowie.
I mean, I want something closer to his Goblin King performance, really. I want something more akin to that, really.
Well, even here, he can't disguise his charisma. Even as his world is collapsing and he's aging rapidly, that guy, even under all that old age makeup, when he's like getting frustrated at the lab and getting up and getting out of there, and he tells her off, I'm like, dude, look at you acting under all that latex.
God,
You're
he's so
awesome.
good. I know. I my enjoyment of this movie significantly decreases when Bowie's out of it. I was because even though I'm not like digging everything they're doing, I'm really enjoying watching Bowie in this movie.
Deneuve,
and I like
hamstrung. Well, but she's hamstrung by she's been cast here, as she was a few times in her career, as being sort of this goddess, where she's basically emotionless until she gets scenes where she breaks down. But most of the time, she's this stoic, beautiful statue. That looks amazing and is all sort of retro styled with like 40s hairdo, and cat's eye glasses and all this 1980s kind of retro chic stuff. She looks amazing, but she's not given much to do other than stand there and be alluring.
And as you're saying, I have definitely seen other Catherine Deneuve movies where that's kind of how she's used.
Well, she
is
was
always
known as the like she's an ice queen.
Yeah. Belle de
Which is why you go
jour.
back and watch something like Belle de Jour, where she is frigid, but there's this whole psychological thing underneath it that's
Yeah.
very moving and great.
That's a much more interesting
Well,
and
it's
rich
a good
movie
movie.
than this. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there are things for her to play. I think she is
this
lost.
doesn't
I
give her
think
much
actually I really think both her and Sarandon as characters are they're Sarandon is hamstrung by a different thing, which is what you were talking about earlier, which is she has to make this wild shift that you can't follow the logic of.
Yeah.
And
she's trying to
I
really
love
ground
Susan
this
Sarandon.
character. She plays
She's
this
a great
scientist.
actress. Like she's always great, but
Oh yeah, she's great.
But good luck with this script, like
She's trying to play a real person, even though she's this brilliant scientist. So she gets lines of dialogue where she's like going, "Come on, people, can you tell me what's going on here?" And she doesn't move around seductively, looking at people, going, So when she falls under the sway of Catherine Deneuve, it is a hard shift that you're like, if they had built up to this, that would be great.
Yeah.
But they have literally met twice, and she's already in the shower,
So
and
like
they're now naked.
I can only then go, it's a vampire movie, she must be hypnotizing her. But that I think because of what Sarandon's saying, where it's like, I don't want to be drunk, I don't want to seem like I'm under the influence of something, it's like, well then that directly contradicts that idea.
And there's also the problem there that they're not showing anything intrinsically, even though, it's Clifton Young, but I mean, they're not showing anything intrinsically wrong with their relationship. So it's
Right.
not like she's actively looking elsewhere anyway. So it does make it seem like, why does this woman, despite the fact that it's Catherine Deneuve, why would she suddenly just go, I can't even control myself? And the whole line of, are you trying to seduce me? It's like, wow, come on.
And when she says that, it's almost like, it's so jarring when she says that. Like the idea that she would even jump to that is... and she says it in this like, what are you trying to seduce me? Like in this way where it's like, oh yeah, that might be a thing that would occur. I mean, I guess maybe it is if you're Susan Sarandon. People would just try to seduce you.
I've been down this road before.
Yeah.
If I just meet someone for coffee, it's going to end up with them trying to sleep with me.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that was Susan Sarandon's life.
That's probably true.
I mean, the woman is in her 70s and still stunning.
I know. I know.
She's
Again,
much like the aforementioned Jane Seymour, she's pretty ageless. These are ageless beauties.
The thing with, and Catherine Deneuve also hung in there, all the way.
Yeah.
The thing is that you sit there going, that's one of the crimes of Tony Scott in this movie is you are dealing with incredibly beautiful people, including David Bowie. You're dealing with incredibly beautiful people.
Honestly, like I said, Bowie's probably objectively the most beautiful person.
And you keep trying to top them by these crazy aesthetics. It's like, if you just let them be in this movie, we would all be seduced by every one of those characters instead of having our attention pulled by doves and fluttering fabric and filtered light and all this neon. Their bathroom, when we see not Catherine Deneuve's, but when we see Clifton Young and Susan Sarandon's apartment bathroom and it has fucking neon in it, I'm like, stop, man, just stop. It's ridiculous. It's these huge mirrors and neon.
It's actually a style that does.
It
actually, weirdly, even though, because this is sort of, because I feel like this movie should be more goth in the vampire realm. But I was going to say, his style does work better when it's placed on crime movies and stuff like that. I don't know, there is something about that gloms on that one, and he backs it off a little bit too, but it adds something when you're working in a recognized genre and then you're just enhancing a little bit with the Tony Scott style. Then it becomes,
if you're
I'm taking something you're familiar with and adding a new view of it.
Yeah.
As opposed to this, where I'm just like, I don't know what to make of this movie. The plot is already kind of hard to get into and different than we're familiar with in the vampire genre. So then when you're just going so hard at the art direction, at a certain point, I kind of just gave up. I went, I'm never going to understand fully what's happening here. So whatever, man. I'm just going to look at,
The plot is totally understandable with some
Well,
weird
I will
stuff
say
until the end.
Yes, the ending is, which Kim Newman actually had my favorite thing about that, and it is that a third act that will have you screaming for the screenwriter's blood.
Yeah.
Because I agree. That is where, because actually what I'm realizing is not that I'm not following the plot, but I'm just going like, man, the plot is so simple, and yet it's just dragging out and out and out. Because this movie is like 95 minutes.
You could flesh both main characters' lives out. We could know more about Susan Sarandon. We could know more about Miriam and John, and we don't get.
No, it's weird because we're talking about the movie drags out for so long, but it drags out on neither plot nor character. It's just on style.
Yep, it drags out on style.
And you're just going like, my God, yeah. And I think you're right about taking pages out of the script, because also not a ton of dialogue to be had.
That's what I'm saying. That is a 15-page script.
And when there is, it's mixed so low you can't even hear it.
That is tricky when you have someone speaking heavily accented English.
Oh, I may not have heard anything Catherine Deneuve said in this movie.
You didn't hear at the end saying, "I loved you all."
Oh, yeah.
I loved you all.
Yeah. So let's see. So Bowie now goes to the clinic to confront Susan Sarandon because he's aging rapidly, and this is where we get. Can I talk about the pretension? Even extends into the credits on this movie, because it doesn't say makeup effects; it says makeup illusions by.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I thought,
that's right.
For the love of God, that tells you what kind of movie we're in right from the start. These aren't makeup effects; they're makeup illusions.
But I don't think that the makeup artist requested that.
No. That's Tony Scott. I feel like once again, it just adds to the pretension.
It's
of this
some
entire
excellent
thing.
makeup.
It's very good makeup. Yeah, makeup illusions though.
So by the time John gets to meet Susan Sarandon at her lab, which of course is a very unrealistic looking building that would have a lab in it. It looks like an art museum.
By the way, the makeup is by a guy named Peter Montaigne, and this is his first credited makeup work.
Wait, it's also with another big name though. There's two people credited.
Well, so I'm looking at who are you talking about?
I could have sworn it was someone like Rick Baker and.
No, I don't see Rick Baker listed here. Peter Montaigne is listed as the special makeup effects artist in the cast here. Special makeup, Anthony Clave, Doug Drexler, Dick Smith. Sworn. Dick Smith is the one credited with makeup illusions.
Dick Smith,
yeah. This is who I'm looking at here. He is the one I was looking for, which is the guy who's actually credited with makeup illusions. And he did The Exorcist.
Yeah.
He did. He also worked on Dark Shadows back in the day.
Wow.
He goes way back. Oh, he worked on Nighthawks, which I just watched the other night. Deer Hunter, Marathon Man, Poltergeist, lots of stuff. And his last credit,
he's a name.
His last credit was on the absolutely terrible 1999 remake of House on Haunted Hill, which I
with amazing makeup.
Fucking hate. The makeup actually is good, but that movie
the CG is garbage.
The CG is garbage. He specifically, as they say here, worked on the design of the eyeless apparition, which I think did look cool.
I just remember that as a movie I saw with an ex-girlfriend, so we'll pass on that.
I just remember hating it because I loved the Vincent Price movie.
Oh, of course.
And
it was deliciously horrifying.
Well, one of my favorite things about the Vincent Price movie, spoilers for that movie from the 50s, is nothing supernatural is going on. It's all this elaborate death trap between him and his wife, and they hate each other, and they've just set this up to murder one another. But then in the remake, it is that plus there are real ghosts. And I'm like, fuck off, movie. You took the best thing about the original movie, which is it's just these people in the middle of this insane revenge between these two jilted lovers, which I thought was great. Where it's like, yes, dear, that's right. It was all set up. This pit of acid, whatever. Like that stuff is great. And then everyone backs out like, holy shit, what did we get in the middle of? And then it's like it's all that. And I love Jeffrey Rush in the Vincent Price role. That's a great choice.
Yes.
In the remake, but it's a dumb movie. All those what was that company, Ghost House or whatever? That was Joel Silver's. You remember his horror? He had that horror production company. They did a few remakes because they also did House of Wax.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and
there were a few all around the same
they did
time.
The Haunting,
House of Wax with Paris Hilton.
Yeah, The Haunting
Jeez.
with Liam Neeson, which was horrible, and an original one they did was Ghost Ship. I remember that because that was terrible too.
Oh, Ghost Ship! I saw that one too.
I think that was Gabriel Byrne, and I want to say was the lead in that.
Oh,
yeah, yeah, they got good people. Just
well, you're hurting my heart, but
yeah,
but the originals are still out there. So
I mean, like the original Haunting is great. 13 Ghosts, that was the other one they did.
13 Ghosts, right? So it was all the William Castle stuff.
They basically remade the William Castle stuff, and not as good. Not as,
no, of course
not as interesting or as clever or as fun as those William
13
Castle
Ghosts with Ghost-O-Vision.
Yeah.
Was it Ghost-O-Vision?
Yeah.
Where you had the special glasses?
The remake had Shannon Elizabeth, I think, is who I remember being the star.
Oh, boy.
But now I'm on this thing. I got to look up who was slumming it. Tony Shalhoub was slumming it in it. That's
dear God.
Yeah, I was like, there's got to be like some well-known, respected actor that's slumming it in that movie.
Worked into the terribleness.
And also the title was THIR 13EN Ghost.
I hated that. I think we've moved past it now with the working the number into a letter thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the ultimate
even 7, which is a great movie, but I'm like, don't do that. Don't.
Ooh, F. Murray Abraham was slumming it in that too. Jesus, you've got Shannon Elizabeth, Matthew Lillard, then Tony Shalhoub, and F. Murray Abraham.
You mean the great Matthew Lillard?
I actually think Lillard is not bad.
I think that he continues to he'll pop up and surprise you with how good he is.
Like
in something.
when he showed up in The Descendants, that George Clooney movie, I'm like, he's great in this,
and he's great in season 3 of Twin Peaks.
Yeah, he also was good on Bosch on Amazon, and he continues to play Shaggy in every Scooby-Doo thing. He does the voice of Shaggy across all the animation.
Well, I will say that the Scooby-Doo movies are terrible, but they got 2 casting choices absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Linda Cardellini, great
Matthew Lillard.
film.
Yeah.
Matthew Lillard,
yeah,
or Lillard,
yeah.
He was a great Shaggy.
Yeah.
I met his parents once at Warner Brothers. They were delightfully pro him. Like
That's
they
great.
came to do a tour,
Yeah.
and they were like, "Oh, we're Matthew Lillard's parents." I was like, "Oh, he's great. He's great in Scooby-Doo." And they're like, "Oh, we're just so proud of him." They were like kind of obnoxious, like, "Let me show you pictures of him as a kid." And I'm like, "Okay, sure."
That's cute. I like
Yeah,
that.
it was adorable. But anyway, so we have to get back to the hunger.
But why?
Because one thing, I'm feeling the hunger.
Yeah, so Bowie goes to the clinic and he's like, "Look, I'm rapidly aging. I need your help, Susan Sarandon." And
This is
like,
a decent scene just because of the implications of it. This guy comes in and he confronts Susan Sarandon and says, "I have a condition. I'm aging rapidly." And he says, "How old do I look to you?" And she goes, "Look, this is a game. I don't do this kind of thing." And he's like, "No, seriously, how? I don't know. Like
I will say
40.
I think
50.
this sequence is the best in the movie.
Yeah,
this whole sequence I think is actually really good, and I think it's actually one of the few times where the editing does work.
Yes. So basically, she says, "You're this age." He goes, "Would you believe I'm 25? I was 25 when I woke up this morning. I've been 25 for a long time."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Yeah, okay. Well, I have a seat." She thinks he's a freak.
She calls security.
Upstairs.
This is one of my favorite things. She calls security. She goes, "Yeah, we got another nut." Like these guys come in. There's other people who have said similar things. Yeah. Yeah.
And she says it'll be 15 minutes. I'll see you in 15 minutes. She's lied to him, and she's going to get security to get him out. So he sits there for hours, and this is effective editing. They cut back, and we watch him age.
And this is once again
he reaches up, pulls hair off his scalp.
The most legitimately horrifying thing in this movie that is, I mean, they're definitely pitching it as a horror movie. I don't really. It's. It
has its moments.
Yeah, but this particularly, this is creepy and unnerving to watch. This is getting bordering into like Cronenberg kind of stuff.
Well, the actual disturbingly scary parts of this movie both deal with David Bowie.
Yep.
Because when he attacks Alice, it's like
Yeah.
obviously that's an easy one.
I'm never scared of Catherine Deneuve in this movie. I am scared of Bowie in places.
Well, she also doesn't attack as much as she seduces, and people want it anyway.
We'll get to the Alice scene because I do think that is also an effective scene.
Yeah.
Once again,
but anyway,
once
so
Bowie's
Susan
out of
Sarandon,
this movie, it's a lot more boring to me.
She deals with her research
She's
stuff.
talking
It's
about
more monkeys.
The none of the monkey stuff fucking matters at all. It doesn't matter. It's all just cross-cutting bullshit.
She's seeing it's mirrored.
Yeah,
what she's seeing.
This is where there's more of the cross-cutting, and the monkey is rapidly aging and then decaying, which is all effective, and it's cutting back to Bowie and the clock, and
then so she's on her way out for the day, and Bowie's had enough. Like,
pissed.
You've blown me off, and then she sees him, and she's like, "I'm sorry, can I help you?" And he's like, "We talked like 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
I'm even older now."
And that's where she's
"Holy
like,
fuck!"
Okay, wait a minute. Then you got to come back, and he's like, "No, I'm not going with you, lady. You've done
he's had enough."
And
we did skip the part where while he's waiting, he goes to the bathroom really quick. The thing is, he's
that's after. That's while he's
is that
storming
after?
out. That's
okay.
So we're coming to that. He goes to the bathroom, and there's another guy next to him, and
he's like fingering the Ankh thing. Like you can tell that John's like going, maybe if I drink some more blood from somebody, it might help.
Well, because that's going to be the next scene after this too, where he's kind of like, get a little taste of that blood. And then somebody else walks in.
He tries this in the bathroom, but he doesn't do it. It's too public. He gets interrupted.
Because he's looking. It's just him and that guy, but then another guy comes out of a stall, and he's like, "Oh no, they're too messy."
And so he hobbles off, and then it's the thing with him in the park, like Central Park.
Shit.
And
this is where, for half a second, I thought, "What am I looking at?" When it is just this silhouette of this guy doing roller skate tricks in the middle of the park.
We cut to suddenly Roller Boogie starring Linda Blair. This is it's just weird. Like, why focus on this?
Yeah.
All we need to know is that there's a park guy in the park on roller skates, and David Bowie, and this is in one of those tunnels in the park.
But in classic Tony Scott overindulgent fashion, we have to watch for like a minute as it is just this guy skating around in silhouette.
I guarantee you, all that like ghostly blue light is not what you see in one of those tunnels in Central
Park. Of course not.
There is not bright blue neon inside them.
No.
But so Bowie goes for this guy, and so it's elderly Bowie goes for this guy and does successfully nick him in the neck. But is he too frail? Why can't he finish the job here?
That's what I took it to be, because the guy starts fighting him off, and I think Bowie is very weak at this point, which then makes sense that he ultimately does kill a child later, right? I think once again, the movie is so obscure and just so it's not going to tell you anything. That is what I think is happening here.
Yeah.
Because this guy puts up a little fight, and Bowie's like, yeah.
Is anything happening with Catherine Deneuve during this sequence at all? Because then we're
because actually I noted that Deneuve kind of disappears from the movie for about 15 minutes here.
Right, yeah. Then he goes home, and then Alice shows up, and she thinks the old man. She keeps going, do you know John?
Yeah.
And he goes, yes, I do. And she goes, are you John's dad? Because you look so much like him.
You have the same eyes, she says. And he's like,
yeah. And she takes a picture
he goes, no one's ever told me that before. It's all very good. This is very good because he's also behind this. This is where the gauzy curtain works once again, because he's obscured by it, and they're talking, and you're just like, this is creepy because the imagery is this old man and this young girl, and you're like, what's gonna happen?
And he lets her in, and she goes, well, you must know them because obviously you got a key to the place, and I'm supposed to. And he goes, I've heard about you, Alice, and don't you only play music with them on Mondays and Wednesdays or whatever, and it's a Tuesday? And she goes, oh, I know. I just dropped over to something or other, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, tell her. It's to tell her that I can't come over on Tuesday.
Oh, right. And then he's like, would you play this particular piece for me? Yeah. And she goes, I guess.
This and the scene in the doctor's office are two where you're going like, okay, Tony Scott, this is where I can see that somebody would watch this and go, this guy does have the goods if we can get him to settle down a little bit. These are effective
and that's
sequences.
why these scenes are working too, because these are a little except for the roller boogie scene, the thing in the lab, the hospital,
Yeah.
and then here are pretty conservatively done, and just let the actors be in these scenes. She is delightful as always. So she's a cute, spunky kid. She starts playing the piece. He says the same thing to her that he did as
Yeah.
John,
Yeah.
which is, "Will you play this piece? I know it's too saccharine." And she goes, "That's what John always says about it." So she starts playing it, and he's like walking behind her.
Yeah. Oh, this
And
is
then
good
he
stuff,
grabs
man.
her.
Bowie's so good. And he grabs her before he slides through. He's like, "Forgive me."
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's a cheap thing. It's like killing a pet or killing a kid in a movie.
Yeah.
You know, people are going to go like, "Oh," but she's like, it's uncomfortable
Well,
because she's
it's one of the
screaming
only,
and kind
like,
of struggling, and he slices her throat.
The movie is so stylized that it's also cold in its stylization.
Yeah.
So when it gets to peaks of emotion like this is when you're like, "Oh, damn." Like the violence feels visceral here. You're like, "Oh shit, no, don't kill that girl." And he
These
doesn't even
peaks
really
of
want to do it.
emotion that you're talking about are so rare in this movie.
Yeah.
It is interesting. The movie, the third act, the end of it,
Yeah.
makes so little sense. You would think we would be moved because it is the highest, most
Right.
operatic,
But it's
point of
nonsense.
emotion. But it all
It's
makes no
nonsense.
fucking sense.
No, I don't know what the deal with any of it is. I'm very curious to see how the book ends. I can't get a
Yeah,
I couldn't get a
actually, yeah, me
synopsis
too.
because I don't. There's no way it ends like this.
Have we met the people at the phone booth yet?
No.
Did we skip over that?
No, that's
Because
not.
we got to talk about the people at the phone booth.
Oh, we definitely do. No, that's later. That's later. I have that in my notes when those guys show up. So then Deneuve comes home, and he's ancient at this point. Now,
Yeah.
Bowie, and he's fucking furious because he's like, "You said forever and ever."
Yeah, and we
Bowie's
know that
good.
she
He's
did
so
because
good,
we
man.
keep cutting back to the same scene,
Which is like a
from
wedding ceremony, right? Between them.
ancient time, where
Yeah.
she goes, "And we will be together forever and ever."
Yeah. And so he's screaming that at her. "What happened to forever and ever?" You know. Bowie's good, man. And then Bowie's
He's
gonna
good.
die here, which is a bummer. Because then he goes, because she's like, "Wait a minute." She's kind of going like, "What did you do? You know, like, did you?"
Right.
And figures out that he killed Alice, and so she goes and burns Alice's body. And this is when he's like, "You gotta kill me. I can't go on any longer like this." And she's just like, "I can't." And then and then a weird bad screenwriting here where he's like, "Please kill me. I can't." And then he just drops dead immediately after that conversation.
But he doesn't. He
Oh,
collapses, but we
yeah.
do see that he's basically hanging on by a thread. I did like the fact that she is shown to be able to just like lift him
Yeah.
and
Oh, I
carry
like
him
that.
through a whole house.
Once
and
again,
everything.
there's some effective images here and there, like her carrying his shriveling kind of corpse of a body into the elevator and up into the, and then she
and I
has all
thought
the coffins of her former lovers up in the attic or whatever.
Again, it's not that the scene was really well done or anything, but at the same time, I kind of like the idea that she never lets go of them. So she did love all of them. She's kept their coffins with them inside. So she has one for him. She just lays him in it and as she puts the top on it, we see that he's still kind of breathing, which is kind of cool, actually. It's just sort of like, "Well, you're about done." And she just puts the lid on and says to one of the other coffins, she talks to the other dead person.
This
like,
is John.
Take care of him.
John. Or whatever. Yeah, watch over
take
him.
care of him.
Yeah.
I like the concept of the scene, but
once again, lots of good concepts that maybe come from the book, because it sounds like plot-wise, they did the book fairly close. Like just based on what I read, a little bit of the book on Wikipedia there.
Again, I cannot imagine that end has anything to do with it.
No, I don't think so. Like I said, he also wrote 2 sequels to the book, which is interesting. Yeah.
The Further Adventures of Miriam?
The sequel is called The Last Vampire. And then it's something else. Like he kind of ends up calling the franchise The Last Vampire, because then it's like the Last Vampire, then The Last Vampire : something. So let me I'll get that. But so let's see. Yeah, she does that. Then Susan Sarandon comes to the house.
Yeah, this is what I do love. in an ironic way, how abrupt everything is, because she weeps. Deneuve has something to do. She grieves John's passing. And then it's like 15 minutes later,
Yeah, I know.
Susan Sarandon's
Yeah.
at the door. I'm like, must not suck to be a vampire, because she's got no shortage of rebound material. It's just like, oh, hi, you're the next one? Come on in.
Yeah.
She gave Catherine Deneuve her card at the book signing. Catherine Deneuve. Oh, no, Catherine Deneuve is showing up not because of the card. She's showing up because of she was concerned about aging David Bowie.
Yeah,
So
Susan
she shows
Sarandon,
up
yeah.
there, and she's surprised to see that Catherine Deneuve, the
Yeah.
woman from the book signing, is there.
And then she says, well, what happened? And she just says he's on vacation, basically.
She goes, he went to Switzerland for like a specialist to look at his condition.
Yeah, right. And then it's like, oh, well, can you contact him
And
for
then
me,
Catherine Deneuve goes, and I'm all alone.
Yeah.
In this big old house.
In this big old house. Let me slip into something more comfortable.
Let me play some piano and get you some wine.
No, because she doesn't come in here as of yet.
Oh, yeah. This is the intro.
Yeah, we start with, because then Dan Hedaya will show up and go like, I'm looking for that little girl who disappeared. Excuse me, I am rumpled police detective Dan Hedaya.
And even young Dan Hedaya looks, I mean, he was born ruffled.
Yeah. Well,
And
I mean, this is the same way he looks a couple years later in Commando as well, right? Like he's always
My
just
favorite
like,
thing with him, and every time I see him,
Yeah.
I always cut to Joe versus the volcano.
Oh, God, yeah.
I know he can get the job,
Yeah.
but can he do the job? I'm not arguing that with you. I am not arguing that with you. You hear like the same 18 lines just, or repeated over and over and over again in the office where Joe works.
Yeah.
It's so good.
He's great. He's always great. I love him. I do think of him from The Addams Family, which is a movie I watched a lot as a child. A lot. I've seen that movie. And just a guy who's just, you look at his, and of course, is Nick Tortelli on Cheers. Oh, my God.
Of course.
Always hilarious.
And the Tortellis.
Oh, you mean
one of the finest spinoffs of television history.
I mean, certainly the best spinoff of Cheers. Nobody
Gene
had a
Kasem. I mean, that skyrocketed her to stardom.
How long do you think the Tortellis lasted?
Well, I think they probably filmed 10 episodes, and I think 3 aired or something.
It's one of those. It's up there with the Ropers, where you're like, who the hell wanted to watch that? In what world did anybody think?
Here's where I take great offense. I watched every episode of the Ropers, but I only watched the first episode of the Tortellis.
They made 13 episodes of the Tortellis.
They made 13, but only a few ran.
Let me. Here's how much I don't want to talk about this movie. I will look. No, they all aired.
Oh, really?
From January to May of '87. They did air, but nobody watched them, I don't think. Because it's another one where it's a classic misunderstanding where it's like, yes, Nick Tortelli was funny in an episode of Cheers here and there when he and Carla would mix it up. I do not want to see him every week.
No.
That is, same thing with the Ropers. The Ropers were funny in reaction to the Three's Company characters.
Well, but, again, those two people sparring is great. You want a half hour of that every week.
People did not.
Listen, I don't want to live in a world that has a lack of Norman Fell. I want this to be a Fell-full world.
I'm with you there, and unfortunately, they got screwed on that because they were told if the show got canceled, they'd come back to Three's Company. And then when they were like, got canceled, come back, they were like,
sorry,
no.
Furley's in and he's here to stay.
We're all about Don Knotts now. And I love Don Knotts too. I mean,
I know that's a divorce where I wouldn't know to pick daddy or mommy because I love them both.
I mean that is kind of the great thing about Three's Company. You get the best of both worlds there.
You do indeed.
Mm-hmm. My controversial opinion, though, that I like Priscilla Barnes more on there.
I like Priscilla Barnes, and I thought she was good.
I never loved Suzanne Summers. Never loved her.
Oh boy,
hated that interim girl. Obviously, like everybody did.
Oh, I can't even
I
remember.
can't remember her name.
I almost said Shelley Hack, but that's Charlie's Angels.
No, yeah, it's not her. It's the interim girl who was Chrissy's cousin. Is that right?
Chrissy's cousin.
Yes, I've seen a lot of Three's Company in my time as well.
Which is so disturbing because you are 22 years old, and I cannot believe
I'm
you have watched that much.
I'm a bit older than 22, but
All right, 22 in what, 4 months?
yeah, there
Jesus.
you go. Fresh out of college. There we go. So then we do see that Susan Sarandon has been affected by her time with Catherine Deneuve because she's sitting in her office and she keeps thinking the phone has rung, and the woman's like,
Yes.
it didn't ring. I don't know what to
There
tell
is
you."
now a psychic bond because she can
Mhm.
kind of feel her calling to her across the city, but she keeps thinking the phone is ringing, and they're, again, this is the scene where they're in their office, and I'm like, it's so dark. It's so dark in there. But
By
the
the
light
way,
sure looks awesome coming into those blinds.
Brendan, the name we were looking for was Jenny Lee Harrison.
Jenny Lee Harrison, there you go.
Yeah.
Another 70s blonde who had a little bit of a career.
Yeah, she played Cindy Snow, cousin of Chrissy Snow.
While Chrissy was still making phone calls shot on the soundstage with no one else around.
Nobody
Hey,
wanted
Jack,
her there.
how's things going?
Nobody wanted her there.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that went bad. So finally she's so drawn over that she goes to see Catherine Deneuve again, and this is where things get sexy.
Oh, before that, though, or is it before? Is the truck scene yet?
The truck scene. Oh, yeah. Sorry, that's on her. I believe that's on her way
On
to
her
see.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Catherine
this
Deneuve.
this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of cool.
She's like so zonked out in this mental connection that she almost gets hit by a truck.
She's walking into the street, and also this is way too over edited. You're like, guy, you could have gotten this idea across much quicker. But somehow Catherine Deneuve, where she is so psychically connected that Catherine Deneuve senses that there's danger. It's like Spidey senses. She knows a truck is barreling down and is going to hit Susan Sarandon. So are we meant to infer that somehow Catherine Deneuve, Miriam, is able to psychically make that truck driver stop the truck?
Maybe. I guess so.
She's looking at a picture of Susan Sarandon, and then it's like, oh, she gets a spidey sense, and we see the truck coming, and then it's like somehow she's protected her because the truck stops within inches of hitting Susan Sarandon. It's weird.
Very weird.
And then do we cross paths with the phone booth guys?
No, that is later. I'm telling you, that is not till after the sexy sex, which I do want to talk about both of those guys because I'm a fan of both.
But I mainly
actors.
want to talk about the sexy sex.
I don't really have much to say about this.
No, I
actually.
know. We already did plenty of that at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, she goes over there. Catherine Deneuve is playing piano. She's drinking sherry, and then I mean, here's the thing about it's very artsy, but it still is pretty Skinamax to me. The like setup to it when she spills her wine on her completely translucent, tight white T-shirt, and you're just like, man, this is just all about nipples now.
Yeah, the thing is okay, you certainly can do artistically shot lesbian romance, and I mean, boy, has there been plenty of that.
I would argue that there's maybe too much of it in cinema. Only in the sense that
never too
I'll
much.
just say that it seems like, and SNL did a great parody of this either last season or the season before, which is like dramatic period lesbian drama.
Oh yeah.
It's the same
That's
movie.
become a real thing.
Yeah, like every year we get the same movie with just different actresses playing.
It's 1845. There's no way these two women can express their love for each other.
Yeah, okay, it just seems like every year there's a new one of those that I don't watch.
But we're Amish. It doesn't matter.
I know. It's one of the it's in Catholic Ireland, or it's
you'll be damned for your naked loving ways.
Right. And it still does always still seem kind of smutty to me, though. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's always sort of just this like.
Well, to tell you the truth, any film that no, it doesn't make them all smutty, but erotic films, in general, you get the impression, even if they have a real emotional story to tell. I mean, you could say in a weird way, Brokeback Mountain is kind of the same way.
Yeah.
Even though there's a strong emotional core to it, it gets to a point where, oh, it really is about the building of a physical
Yeah.
and romantic relationship, but we're really going to look at the physical for a bit.
Well, because there's a if not a smutty, there's definitely a like, you won't believe what we show.
Yeah. And this one, as you were saying, it's not the implication of the scene,
Yeah.
it's how poorly done it is as writing
Yeah.
and so forth. If I had been Catherine Deneuve or Susan Sarandon, I would have said, can we write this better?
Yeah.
Because yes, it literally is, are you trying to seduce me? No. Do you think I am playing piano? And then, oops, I've spilled my sherry all over myself. I better take a shower now.
That was
in your
so
shower.
It was so porny. That part,
It was
not
porny.
not the actual sex, but the lead up to it, and then it's just like,
but it's also the soft
the way she
filtered light
strips
and
the
wafting.
shirt off, and you're like,
Yep.
Jesus Christ. It really is just like boobs.
Yeah, and so in
and
other words,
I'm not complaining about seeing Susan Sarandon's boobs by any stretch of the imagination, but
that's what I'm hearing.
I am able to separate the erotic side of it and the filmmaking side, where you're going like,
well, sure.
narratively, this doesn't make sense. Filmmaking wise, this is so exploitational.
Well, we're led to believe that this is her next great love, Miriam's next great love.
Why are we led to believe that, though? Like, why would we ever think that? Beyond Susan Sarandon's really hot, and also because of how they've styled her. Because of how they've styled her, she kind of looks like David Bowie.
Well, sure, exactly, but
yeah.
I mean, and again, an
David
intelligent
Bowie with
woman.
large breasts. Interesting.
Yeah. I guess you'll be my next great love.
Yeah.
But I guess in
I
a
would
weird
love
way,
if we saw
that's
the
what
other loves
ending...
and they all kind of look like David Bowie. Like, it's just,
it would be good. They cut back to ancient Egypt and it's just an Egyptian who looks like David Bowie.
Just David Bowie, yeah.
But so they
green. No, by the way, this made me want to watch Cat People more. Even he's not in it, but it's still a movie I associate with him.
Yeah, and it was from the year before.
Yeah.
Bowie was and his album Let's Dance is coming out around the same time. That was the big one. That was the big mass
put on your red shoes and dance.
Yeah, that's where it was like, oh, Bowie can be a pop star as well as like the great enigmatic rocker.
Yeah. No, we're definitely segueing. He's pretty much made the transition here to 80s Bowie at this point. Like,
yeah. He's almost that guy.
Yeah.
Serious Moonlight Tour. I had a chance to go and I passed it up.
The silliest moonlight.
I am stupid. But I was young and wanted to hang out with cute girls, so I skipped a Bowie concert.
Yeah, I mean that is but I am sad I never got to see him.
Yeah, adult me wants to kick young me in the ass. But anyway, so the sex scene on top of the light board, it's actually not graphic. Because
it's so arty that it can't be graphic, like, to a certain
goes
extent.
on too long, and it does boil down to your typical thing of, I'm going to nibble on your wrist, and implied. In fact, we get close-ups of blood cells. You're like, oh, that's good, Tony. And then
he does this cut from the bite to her cutting into the bloody steak at the restaurant.
Oh, that's how that scene ends. Yeah.
That's where you get the cut.
But you also get in that sex scene, because this is important, because we see Susan Sarandon sucking on Catherine Deneuve's wrist.
Right.
So it's an exchange of blood, like classic vampire stuff.
Yeah.
But yes, then we cut to the cutting of a bloody steak.
Yeah.
At a restaurant,
and Cliff DeYoung just being like, "You ordered the steak rare? What? You don't do that. That's crazy."
Yeah, and what were you and that woman talking about for 3 hours? And she goes, we just hung out and I drank some sherry, but you hate sherry.
Gives you a headache. I like Cliff DeYoung. Cliff DeYoung's in like a Woody Allen movie where he's just neurotic about all. Wait, what were you doing for 3.5 hours with Catherine Deneuve?
I'm sure you were probably discussing some article you read in the New Republic. I'm sure that it was a little. You probably were having a political discourse.
This movie goes up a full letter grade to me if you replace Cliff DeYoung with Woody Allen.
It would be great.
Number one, him as a blood expert would be funny to begin with. The thing about the red blood cells is you got.
I understand that the terrible things were happening with the monkey, but if I could be excused from.
Yeah.
I don't want to look at that footage.
Yeah.
It turns.
It's
I had tuna fish
yeah.
for lunch.
Ugh,
It's sitting
I'm gonna,
bad.
Yeah, I'm gonna be dry heaving all evening.
I suppose you and Catherine Deneuve were just, I don't know, doing macrame for 3 hours. Is that what I'm led to believe? Probably listening to some sort of a Bella Abzug speech
Woody
while doing
Allen's
macrame.
The Hunger. Now I'm on board.
It would have been great. Yes, cool jazz soundtrack.
Hey man, he still has yet to make a vampire or like monster movie. He doesn't have much time left, so let's get it going, Woody. Let's do the monster picture.
Anything genre other than people stepping out of a movie screen,
Yeah,
and Zelig is a shape changer.
he
sleeper sci-fi.
He approached it. There's some fantastical elements in some of his movies, right? Here and there, but it's pretty rare, and it's all still like in the service of rom-com.
He was able to summon Marshall McLuhan.
One of my favorite scenes in any movie.
It's well, it's funny you should say that because I happen to have Marshall McLuhan right here.
You know nothing of my work.
You know nothing of my work.
Which is always what I go. That's a perfect quote of "You know nothing of my work."
It's so good.
Oh man, anyway, would he make a monster movie? You've got European financing these days.
He's 94 years old,
and I want to see him make a monster movie. Damn it!
Okay.
I think now is the. I always it reminds me of the Ben Stiller sketch, Woody Allen's Bride of Frankenstein.
I don't think I remember that.
Oh my! It's husbands and wives, but with the Universal monsters.
Oh, I do. Yes,
you got Ben Stiller as Sidney Pollack as Frankenstein's monster, and it's Andy Dick as Woody Allen, but he's dressed up like the Mummy.
Yes,
it's a whole thing.
Is that Janine as the bride?
No, it's Janine as Juliette Lewis as the student who's seducing him.
No, that's Kate Munster. You're getting your Ben Stiller show sketches.
She's Juliette Lewis in both sketches because Juliette Lewis is in both movies.
Oh, she's not. Oh, because I just remember her doing the thing with the retainer that from Kate Munster.
That's the Kate Munster one, but she also does Juliette Lewis as the seductive student to Mummy Woody Allen in Husbands and Wives.
That's right.
Because it's Ben Stiller's sister, Amy Stiller, I believe it is, that plays the bride of Frankenstein to, once again, the Sidney Pollack. Ben Stiller is Sidney Pollack as Frankenstein.
That's long days past the Ben Stiller show. One season, and done.
But one of my favorite sketch shows ever, man. I loved the Ben Stiller show because it was aimed right at me. It was all pop culture stuff. Like it was all movie parodies and stuff like that. I just some great writing on that show. So anyway, now speaking of dry heaving, Susan Sarandon is puking into the toilet now. And Cliff DeYoung is going, what is wrong here?
It goes very quickly from, I think you were cheating on me, to, what the fuck's wrong with you?
Right.
Because now she's very sick.
Oh, and we got to talk about my favorite character in the movie, which is cool guy, blood expert doctor, the cool black guy in the shades. No, I love this guy because he has a lot of personality in a movie that doesn't have a lot of character.
Just like Alice, he serves a function, which is, oh, I like this person. They're not always looking artistically bereft or something. He is a blood specialist, but he's a cool guy, just like you said. Yeah. So he's delivering is like, man, I looked at their blood, man. It's like these two different types of blood are fighting each other in their veins.
I gotta say, this is about as crazy a blood as I've ever seen. Like he's that kind of guy.
Crazy blood.
Yeah, man, I don't know what to make of this.
I don't even know.
Is this Rufus Collins, I believe, is who this
Let's
actor
go with
is?
Rufus Collins, then.
Who was also in another movie with Susan Sarandon, which is he's in the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Get out.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What was he in Rocky?
Let's see
I'm going to look now.
Yeah, look, I'm looking to see what he played. Oh, he's uncredited.
He's one of the Transylvanians. He's one of the dancers. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have a whole lot of credit.
That's crazy that he would then end up later as...
Yeah. In a much better...
There he is in the picture.
I'm looking at him, yeah. He's got crazy shades in that, too.
Yeah, he does. But he's got a cool kind of beret type thing in this movie.
Yeah, and he's like... Let me break it down for you. He's going. He's like, you got two strains of blood. There's a foreign strain of blood in your body, and it's battling for supremacy within your blood.
And Clifton Young, it's like this is another proof of cheating because he turns around and goes, "How'd that blood get in your body, huh?
Huh?
You
What are you doing?
You gonna tell me?
Yeah.
What's that about?" And she's like, "I don't know."
I love the
And
idea of
she's
him just
clearly
going,
lying,
I don't even know what you two were up to, but somehow you got somebody else's blood in you.
Well, and then also cool guy is like, and that's not human blood.
It ain't human. Whatever it is, it ain't human. That's for sure. And Susan Sarandon goes, well, which one is winning? And he doesn't say anything. He just kind of looks away like, well, obviously not yours. And she goes, I don't know. Well, you have this. What about this mysterious bite mark on your arm? Where'd that come from? I don't know.
No, I just. Oh,
You come home at all hours of the night. You got bite marks on you. God.
You're telling me you too tired to watch Showa?
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to spend 9 hours watching this Holocaust documentary.
It's Woody Allen as the Clifton Young part. Diane Keaton is Susan Sarandon's part. You know. I'm just so tired. All right. Like,
well, now you're giving us Diane Keaton having lesbian sex with Catherine Deneuve. You got to get my brain out of that, okay? You got to get my brain out of that.
Can't, man. Sorry. No, it would still be Catherine Deneuve because Woody would like Catherine Deneuve. Like that would. Make sense.
My God, are you kidding me?
European art cinema person. Yeah, he'd be all about that.
I have a few questions, if I could. If we could talk about Buñuel.
Yeah. And
Woody, I would just like to do my lines and go back to my trailer.
And then, what the like? It's fucking like Tony Roberts, Bowie.
I love it. Catherine Deneuve goes, "Why do you keep calling me Max? It's a good name for you, Max."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's well, vampire. I can't figure out why I keep aging. So crazy.
Our alternative Woody Allen hunger is so much better than what we're
it so is.
Discussing.
And then it's Christopher Walken as the punk at the phone booth. Sometimes when I'm driving at night,
that is just one of the best scenes in the entire world.
Mainly
because of the cut.
Obviously
that's great, but
the cut to him driving and then the camera just slowly panning to Woody, who's
Woody
just staring at him.
Panicked expression.
And he's just like eyes locked on him at the wheel. Sometimes think about
when I see the lights and the other cars coming towards me, I get the impulse to yank the wheel to the other lane of traffic.
So good.
That's nice, Wayne. Do back on the planet Earth.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Legitimately one of my favorite movies of all time, Annie Hall.
Unbelievably funny.
Yeah. Let's see.
And made by a completely non-problematic person. Moving on.
Yeah, we don't need to get into that. I have opinions. I have opinions that will get me in trouble about that. So
you do.
Yeah,
you do, and you should keep your mouth shut right now.
So I won't.
We just lost a sponsor. Thank you, John.
Yeah, that's what I get for
Doritos. Just called.
We're not slightly, minorly implying that I might believe some of Woody Allen's side of a story gets me in trouble. Yeah, that's where we are. All right. So she runs to Catherine Deneuve and says, "What the hell did you do to me? What's going on here?" And can we say the sex was consensual, but the turn to vampirism was non-consensual, correct?
I think it was consensual trading of blood, but Susan Sarandon had no idea what that would
Correct.
do.
Yes, that's the thing that seems a little.
Yeah, so
she thought it was just some kinky
did not let her
shit,
know
man.
She's now a vampire or turning into one.
Because she's just like, no, it's great. You're gonna live forever.
It's gonna be so nice.
And then I think this is the truck scene actually here, because then she runs out and she's like, "You will come back to me when the hunger begins."
Yeah. Whenever they say the title, I know you usually get very excited.
And I'm like, "Ooh, that's the name of the movie." This finally is where she goes to the payphone.
Okay. The only reason I keep harping on this, it is a nothing scene. In fact, there's like one line of dialogue.
Yeah. But both of these guys are actors. One will become
That is
very
what
famous.
blows my
But
mind. It's
both
not
of
just
these extras, we have a young Willem Dafoe in one of his earliest screen appearances, I believe, and next to him is John Pankow.
yeah.
Who's
Willem gets absolutely no dialogue.
Yeah.
And John Pankow has a line, so it's young John Pankow. I love both those guys.
and one thing that doesn't come up in this vampire mythos except for this scene is she sees John Pankow's cross around his neck is like,
There is one
Is there another thing?
other one.
I don't remember
there's
the other
one
one.
other one. I think it's actually in the very opening
one of those-
seduction scene.
Maybe it is, but it's one of those things where once again I'm going like, oh, are we including that in your vampire mythos too?
Yeah,
'Cause, like,
it's kind of like, oh,
yeah, you're just going like, I obviously Willem Dafoe is a fucking legend and one of the finest actors out there.
Yes.
But I love John Pankow because I grew up watching Mad About You, and he was Cousin Ira.
He's absolutely great in that.
He's great in that. And
one thing I loved him in was Episodes.
Oh, he's so funny
so
in Episodes.
good in Episodes.
I mean,
so
he's
funny.
one of those guys who shows up in like a little part in a movie or show, and he always just crushes it.
Yeah, he's never been like the big name, but he's always solid, dependable. He can do the drama, but he's very, very funny.
They are credited as first phone booth youth and second phone booth youth.
Yeah,
and yet when you scroll down,
there's a phone booth youth.
Yeah.
I guess you just took whatever work. If you're a New York actor, you just took whatever came your way.
Totally.
Because in a year or two, he's going to be on the Streets of Fire.
Yeah,
with his hair all swooped up.
Well, I mean, he's 3 years out from winning the Academy Award for Platoon.
What's that movie?
Platoon.
What's it about?
It's a little Vietnam movie, a little Vietnam picture. It did all right.
I don't watch foreign films.
Yeah.
So anything shot in Vietnam, I wouldn't have watched.
Because he does. It's the next year is Streets of Fire, and the next year is Streets of Fire and Roadhouse 66.
That I never saw.
But he is the star of that, and then 85 is one of my favorites, To Live and Die in L.A.
Yeah.
To live and die in L.A.
To live and die in L.A.
That
actually popped up on my Spotify.
Nice. From the great Wang Chung, who did all the music for that movie.
Yeah, people think they only had one hit. No, they had at least two.
They had a couple, because they had Everybody Have Fun Tonight, right?
That's Dance Hall Days. No, that's Wang Chung.
That's Wang Chung. Dance Hall
and
Days.
Then Dance Hall Days.
Dance Hall
and
Days.
Then To Live and Die in L.A.
Yeah, so they had three.
Yeah, right.
I always really liked Wang Chung.
Look, I'm not slighting Wang Chung.
Yeah, I just love that movie. You talk about like a very stylized, like that was almost Friedkin doing Michael Mann.
Yeah,
because it seems like a Michael Mann movie. He's got William Peterson from Manhunter playing a somewhat similar character.
I think that was Friedkin trying to prove like I'm not an old fart.
Yeah. It works because I really enjoy that movie, but it is a movie where I have to remind myself Michael Mann didn't direct it because it really seems like his kind of film. But Dafoe is awesome
we're not talking about The Hunger anymore.
No, we're not. We're talking about Willem Dafoe. So then we have Catherine Deneuve goes in search of a victim to bring to Susan Sarandon.
Yeah, so Susan Sarandon is, like we said, she's now been told that the change is happening and she'll be back when she's hungry.
The movie's called The Hunger. We get this whole thing about when the hunger hits, yet the theme of like the addiction to blood really isn't that. It
only
strong
kind
in
of
the
shows
movie.
up here, but then
it
again,
seems, but that's a way you
Susan
can
Sarandon's
play.
the only character we see transforming.
Yeah. But I think that's a theme that I've seen play out in other vampire movies really well, the sort of like addiction allegory.
Well,
and
there's the movie called The Addiction, I think, with why am I blanking? Indie actress that everyone loves.
That could be any number of people, Brendan.
Oh God, this is gonna drive me
it's
nuts.
Lily Taylor. I'm looking at it right now.
Lily Taylor, thank you.
And Christopher Walken. That's a Abel Ferrara movie.
Yeah, it's Abel Ferrara's vampire movie.
Yeah. We'll get there. We'll get there. That's a 90s movie.
Yeah. Will we also do Nadia?
We might.
Indie vampire movie.
Sure.
From the 90s.
Yeah. I think I have The Addiction down on the list, but I don't think I have
What's the
Nadja.
one that has Jared Harris in it? Is that also The Addiction?
Jared Harris. Doesn't look like he's in The Addiction.
Young Jared Harris was in an indie vampire movie.
Here's an interesting thing. Looking at the cast of The Addiction, you have Edie Falco and Michael Imperioli
That's
before
great.
Sopranos. Yeah, both just New York actors are in an Abel Ferrara movie. That's interesting. Yeah, Nadja. I'll have to add that to the list. That's 94. That's the year before, with Peter Fonda as Van Helsing.
Oh yeah. It's a Van Helsing, but it's modern day.
Yes. Yeah. Here we okay. We're almost done with this movie. 'Cause she brings home this guy, cuts his
he's
throat.
in Nadja. Sorry, that's where I
Jared Harris is in Nadja.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see him listed here. Yeah, and Martin Donovan and Susan.
But I think it's great that Jared Harris would then be opposite Lily Taylor in I Shot Andy Warhol.
Yes,
because he played Andy Warhol in that.
You also no surprise here, Nadja from executive producer David Lynch.
Oh yeah.
Who apparently cameos as a morgue attendant, according to the Wikipedia.
Of course. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, listen up, Coop.
Very strange things happening around here, Coop.
Yeah. Hey, Coop, I think this girl's a vampire, Coop.
The weather today is very nice. I advise everyone to go outside. Look at the clouds.
I just love that
guy.
David Lynch exists.
Yeah, I want to
it's-
live in his world.
Yeah, it's not like I love every movie he makes. I just like the man. I like a lot of the movies he's made, but not all of them by any means.
Yeah, agreed.
Good luck getting through Inland Empire. Like, just good luck.
I can't do it. I can't do
No,
it.
that's just like that's when it becomes weird and nothing but weird.
That's where I respect the hell out of Laura Dern, but I can't do that with her. I let her go.
No,
I let her go.
I'll stick with Wild at Heart if I'm going to watch a Laura Dern David Lynch movie.
Man, Wild at Heart.
I love that movie. Also a great Willem Dafoe performance.
My dog barks. Some. Jesus.
So good. Okay, so we get this long sequence where she brings this guy back to the house, and we're doing stuff in the elevator, and she appears in the. This is a weird one where she appears in the reflection in the elevator, and then she's not there. Once again, it's like late in the movie, we're going like, okay, so there's some weird vampire powers and stuff
Reflection
we haven't seen.
Stuff, or maybe it's another shadow mind trick thing of like, don't see me.
Don't see me.
I think it is like a clouding of men's minds is what they're implying.
Oh shit! So the shadow's in this movie too.
No, he's not.
I wish he was. Then Lamont Cranston comes in late in the picture.
Yeah, with little ash wood bullets in his guns.
Yeah, man. But she does eventually grab this guy in the elevator and cuts his throat. Then she's like, oh, we get this shot where she's calling to Susan Sarandon, and Susan Sarandon gets up out of the bed and looks down the stairwell to see Catherine Deneuve, and this guy's all covered in blood. She's like, come on down here. Like, I brought you a meal.
She literally pulls out a dinner bell.
Yeah.
She has one of those triangles, actually. She's like,
Soup's on.
Soup's on.
Come and get it.
So she's feeding. She has brought food for Susan Sarandon.
And then, boy, it's bad timing when Cliff DeYoung shows up here at the door.
Oh, it's awkward. It is awkward.
And he goes, look, all right, she was supposed to go to a doctor's appointment. She didn't show up. Is she here? Look, you could break it to me very gently.
I actually do like Catherine Deneuve just being like, yeah, she's here.
Yeah. You could.
The thing is, though, if you're an immortal vampire woman,
be honest with me.
Are you going to be nervous or scared of anybody? You would just be like, no, she's here. Yeah,
yes,
totally cheated on you.
But once again, it's all in this one-note performance from Catherine Deneuve, though, because the character just never is anything but until the very end when it doesn't make sense.
Well, there is the grieving. We do see her sobbing and crying, but that's a short bit.
Yeah, it's not much. It's not a very rewarding part for Catherine Deneuve, regardless of the language barrier. Just as written, it's just not. Look, you could be honest with me, okay? Is she here? I just, I just got to know.
I can smell a patchouli. I've never liked this scent. Don't tell her I said that, but I know she's here.
It's like a James Whale film in this apartment.
I suppose next you're gonna show me one of the Tesla coils with the lightning on it. That's perfect. That'd be perfect decor.
Yeah, we just need more one-liners in this picture. That's the problem.
It's not funny enough. Biggest problem I have with this movie, just not a lot of yachts.
I didn't laugh once in this thing. So anyway, Cliff DeYoung goes up to Susan Sarandon's upstairs, and she's just on the ground like convulsing.
Yeah.
And he's like, Jesus Christ, we got to get you out of here. Then she starts making out with him. Then she starts hitting him and like throwing him around. And and Cliff DeYoung's going, what the fuck? What are you, I think at a certain point he goes, what are you doing? Where are you going? What is all this? What, I can't follow your decisions. Come on, I just talk to me for the love of God.
John, you cannot will this movie into being.
I will will it. And I want to see 95-year-old Woody Allen. My girlfriend's a vampire.
And that'll be the name of it.
Yeah, My Girlfriend's a Vampire, the next Woody Allen picture.
It's actually a cross sequel to The Howling 2, My Sister's a Werewolf.
Yeah, I was very struck by the filmmaking in The Howling 2.
Oh man, that one's coming up. God.
That is imminent, sir.
I'm not ready. I'm not
That
ready.
is imminent.
Oof.
No, so it's The Howling 2, the finest of the franchise, in my opinion. It's
finally all those unanswered questions from the first one are answered.
It is near Bergman-esque. So let's see. Then she pushes him up against the wall, and of course she pulls out the dagger from the pen, and we don't see him get cut or die, but she does come out covered in blood on her mouth and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I did just think, oh, poor Cliff DeYoung. This guy didn't do anything. Didn't do anything.
He didn't ask for it.
And so then Catherine Deneuve's like, hey, good job in there. You're going to live forever now. Starts kind of going like, this is going to be great. You're going to be a vampire now. You're going to live forever. Would be great is if you stayed with me. She goes, in time you'll come to love me the way I love you.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, we did skip one thing because we're barreling towards the end, but it doesn't come to anything. It's not surprising you skipped it, but I mean, Dan Hedaya comes back to say, he's like, oh yeah, he came in as a police inspector looking into the disappearance of Alice, the little girl. That's why he showed up to talk to Catherine Deneuve. And he looks around. He doesn't suspect her. He's just like, yeah, okay, well, let me know if you see her.
Yeah.
That was a whole thing that Dan
because then he'll come back for the third.
And he'll come back at the end.
At the end, yes. That is. He's got one more appearance here.
For all you Hedaya heads out there who are worried.
Here's where we get, though, this bloody makeout where Susan Sarandon has cut her own throat.
Yeah.
And is kissing Catherine Deneuve, and blood is pouring out all over them.
This is where...
the movie stops making sense. Yes, I agree.
I had a theory. I don't think it is borne out. But what I think is Susan Sarandon is pissed about the non-consensual thing.
Yeah.
She's pissed that she's a vampire, didn't ask for it. So in a weird way, what I think is this is her rebellion. Miriam has never had anyone say no. So even though they're making out, which is supposed to be sealing their, their bond, Susan Sarandon rebels and says, no, you can't have me, slits her own throat, and Deneuve's like, no. But there's this conscious, while she's bleeding out, Susan Sarandon is drinking Miriam's blood because she stabs her neck too. And I think what it is she is the one that breaks the cycle. So she becomes the alpha vampire and dooming Miriam, which is, I don't know.
This was not.
That's what
this was not the original ending. In the original ending, Susan Sarandon just died here, having killed herself.
Ah, okay.
The tag ending with her was added on from the studio, who said, horror movies often get sequels. We would like to set one up, which I think is hilarious that you would see this movie and think, oh yeah,
Yeah.
this is going to be big and people are going to want more of these.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the least appealing to mainstream movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I think is, if that's the case,
Yeah.
then you could have had the same beat of her saying no and then stealing whatever power Miriam has through the blood or whatever, and then she could kill Miriam. But this nonsense where it suddenly becomes a supernatural fest where, as far as we know, Susan Sarandon did die, but
Yeah.
suddenly Catherine Deneuve is... the house starts rocking back and forth. This is a building.
I have
apartment
no
building in
idea
New
what's
York.
going on here.
The
No
apartment
idea
building
what's
starts
going on.
rocking back and forth. Wind is blowing,
Yeah.
and then the dead corpses of her former lovers rise against her.
Yes.
What the fuck? And there are lots of voices.
Yeah, and
You
their
promised us,
weird corpses are coming at her, and they end up
and that's where she's
forcing
going,
her
I
down
loved
the-
you. I loved you all.
They end up knocking her down the stairwell where she falls to her death.
Yeah, that's so weird too, because this is an immortal vampire woman, and they just knock her a few stories.
The thing in the book that apparently is made clear, and I don't know exactly what the deal is. I don't think this ending is the same, but according to the book, was they live forever, but they are not immortal. In the book is the thing. They can be killed by normal conventions.
That's true of all vampires in all things.
Well, no, but they can be killed like any other human. You don't have to kill them.
Oh,
in
I
any
see.
kind of
You don't
special
have.
way.
You don't need.
They
special,
just never age.
Right.
But if you just shoot them or they are stabbed or whatever,
they could be run over by a car.
Then they're dead. Yeah, that's.
But actually, what we find out from this ending is maybe she doesn't die anyway.
Oh God, I know.
Because
Jesus
here's what
Christ.
happens.
Yeah.
Okay, so she falls down the stairs. Boom. Then we cut to days later, weeks later, whatever.
I don't
Dan
know.
Hedaya shows back up at the place. It's totally empty.
I wanna-
all this.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to somebody, and they're like, "Oh, actually, we're selling the place right now." And he's like, "Oh, Jesus." Okay.
There's a realtor there saying that it was very sudden, and it had to have been because, good Lord, all the fancy paintings and statuary and everything's gone.
A lot's changed since last time I was here.
Exactly, and so Miriam is basically, they say that she and her husband are gone, and that the building has been bought and is going to be turned into a research center. Ooh, that sounds interesting.
No,
Then
it's not being turned into a research center. The profits from the sale of the house are being given to the research facility. Yeah.
Are being funneled into the research.
Because he's talking to people who might buy the place.
Right.
Yeah.
Then we cut to Rome, Paris,
somewhere
European.
Yeah.
And once more, we have a delightful chamber music little get together. Again, there's a lot of fabric being blown around. It's very nice.
Is there ever fabric being blown about?
We have talented young people playing music, and one of them is a young woman. And then I looked on IMDb and found out that it was the girl from young Sherlock Holmes.
Oh shit, that was a favorite of mine as a kid too.
Yeah, Sophie Ward, who grew up to do more acting, but I remember her from that very clearly because I love that movie. But anyway,
yeah.
So anyway, we see the young, I don't know, prodigy go to the balcony, and there, amongst all the flowing fabric, is Susan Sarandon,
alive and well, despite the fact we literally saw her die.
Yeah, alive and well.
Yeah.
And she leans in and kisses the young woman.
Yeah, because she's just a lesbian now?
She's a lesbian vampire.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know. I just think that's...
And we also do a quick cut to a crate.
Yeah. Oh,
coffin.
This is the most confusing part of the...
And we hear, like,
to me.
gasping or some sort of noise from within.
Yeah.
So that's what led me to believe that Catherine Deneuve did not die.
That was the sequel, right? That's going to be the sequel, right? That's the.
But Susan Sarandon is keeping her in a box.
So here, I have a quote here from Susan Sarandon about the ending of the movie.
Oh, good.
She's
like, it's all jibber jabber. No one cares.
The thing that made the film interesting to me was this question of would you want to live forever if you were an addict? But as the film progressed, the powers that be rewrote the ending and decided that I wouldn't die. So what was the point? All the rules that we'd spent the entire film delineating, that Miriam lived forever and was indestructible, and all the people she transformed eventually died, and I killed myself rather than be an addict, was ignored. Yep. Suddenly I was kind of living, she was kind of half dying, nobody knew what was going on, and I thought that was a shame.
That is as accurate, and she would know.
But
that's exactly.
But also, when she's talking about, I kind of want to see the movie she's talking about. I want more about the whole you can live forever as an addict. That's an interesting. The movie just barely touches on that.
Well, I think she's also doing service to what she believed the movie would be.
Because so when she's saying that,
regardless of the changing of the ending,
if that was the case, you needed to either turn Susan Sarandon earlier in the movie and deal with that, or you needed to make Bowie more desperate for blood expressly throughout the movie, where we really saw the addiction affecting him.
Right, because in his case, the addiction is just to youth and age. Right. He's just seeing a clock run out, not the I've got to get that sweet
that
blood.
Actually would have been the better thing, which is you will age if you don't consume blood, and he doesn't like consuming blood, so he is aging, but he's forced to kill. And because she witnessed that, she kills herself at the end going, I don't want to become another addict that you're stringing along. I like that idea for a movie. Susan Sarandon, I like your movie.
She probably does listen, so I'm glad you were able to address that.
She's an avid listener. Susan Sarandon writes in a lot too. Yeah, I'm often corresponding with Academy Award winner Susan Sarandon.
Dear Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters, thought you were very unfair to Frankenstein Island. Signed, Susan Sarandon.
Susan Sarandon, big Frankenstein Island stan. Absolutely.
Oh my God, anything with Cameron Mitchell. That's what I understand.
She's a real Cameron Mitchell devotee. So that's The Hunger. I can't recommend watching this. There's some interesting stuff here and there. There's some good images here and there. There are some good ideas that maybe come from this novel.
But they don't add up to a movie worth watching.
The movie, at the end of the day, I was intrigued for the first maybe third of it, then kind of getting more and more bored as it went along, then just baffled by the ending.
Yeah, very frustrating.
And I was just frustrated throughout the movie because of how it was made. A lot of the filmmaking choices just annoyed me, and I went, oh, come on, throughout a lot of it. So it drags like nobody's business, even at 95 minutes or whatever.
Yep.
So it's not as hilariously bad as some of the stuff we've watched recently, but it just doesn't work at all.
No, this isn't fun bad. This is just it's just a drag.
Yeah.
And occasionally pretty drag with good actors being wasted. So nope. That's a big no.
Yeah, I agree. It's a no for me, dog. Next week.
What I love about you, Randy, is you keep it real. You keep it real.
You know, back when I was playing with my boy Steve Perry and Journey.
Journey? Yeah.
Back when I was producing Mariah's album. He dropped a lot of names, but they're always the same names. Is what I loved about it.
Because it was like 3 people.
Yeah. But next week on the show is a real oddity and a real hard to find one. You can find it on YouTube, which is where I plan to watch it. And it is the 1984 American television production of Frankenstein, starring Carrie Fisher.
Dude, I think we had the same thing. I think we both back in the day said, I have no idea what this is.
Yeah. I ran across this in my research, and
is it feature length?
Yes, it is. I mean, it's like TV movie feature length, so it's like 75 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
Here it is. It's a TV movie from 1984. It's 81 minutes. Featuring Robert Powell as Victor Frankenstein, David Warner as the creature, Carrie Fisher as Elizabeth, and John Gielgud playing a character named DeLacy.
Wow.
So interesting.
Okay. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
This is a total blind spot.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what happens.
It's a British American co-production, actually, I see here.
Well, we've been friends for a long time. I'm sure it'll be fine.
The quality that you're going to find on YouTube obviously is like VHS quality at best. So I am very curious to watch this because I have never heard of, and obviously certainly not seen this. I'm looking at the thing where they called it the true dramatization of the classic novel. So
Every single one of them has said that.
it's yet another movie that is claiming this is the definitive, most accurate and faithful version.
Finally, we got there.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I love Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, she looks so delightful here because that's around what? Is this around Jedi?
It's the year after Jedi. Jedi was 83.
Jedi,
This is 84.
Yeah.
So here we find her.
Sadly, while she looks
looking great.
Delightful and Carrie Fishery, she's got to be knee deep in cocaine at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm looking forward to it. That because, as you said, this is an oddity. This is out of left field.
No, yeah, this is totally came up before we enter some more comedic films after it. So we'll get some yucks in.
We should also state for our listeners, comedic does not necessarily mean funny.
No, although I think one of them's kind of funny at least. So we'll get into that. But it's Frankenstein from 1984 next week on Campbell and Joe's Beat the Monsters. But that's going to do it for this episode. I'm John Campbell.
I'm Brendan Jones.
And remember, there are such things as monsters.
See these eyes so green. Do, 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 do.